Yeah, I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, everyone. How you doing? I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for being here on Information Radio. This is CBC's Morning Show on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. Mainly clear right now in Winnipeg. We're just at 1 degree. We've got rain coming for later in the week, so enjoy today, get some stuff done. And I know, of course, you're still digging out from some snow up north. This hour on the program, we are going to be talking about how much snow, heavy snow, fell over lots of northern Manitoba over this long weekend, about 30 centimeters in parts, according to Environment Canada. So we're going to do a bit of a check-in with some residents around the area coming up after 6:30. Also this hour on the program, we will take a closer look at Europe's growing drone problem as countries blame Russia for intruding over NATO airspace. So how prepared are we to deal with that? We're going to hear some really good analysis from Christian Lloyd-Precht. But coming up, if you're looking for plans this week, you might want to consider using the prompts yes and go to the Winnipeg Improv Festival. We'll get into what's going on there in a second. Right now, to the news. Heather Wells is in with headlines.
Good morning. Well, the executive director of Congregation Shari Zedek in Winnipeg says yesterday's Israeli hostage release was a bittersweet moment. Rana Sector Elbaz's children knew two of the nearly 1,200 Israeli victims of October 7th 2 years ago. She says having the hostages returned brings her hope for peace. A southern Manitoba principal is suing a conservative activist for defamation. Carmen Collegiate Principal Mary Reimer says Raylan Fox has insinuated Reimer groomed children and promoted child pornography in some social media posts. Fox has campaigned to remove books from school libraries, books she says are sexually explicit, including at the Collegiate. We'll hear more on that story as well in our next local news coming up at 6:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Let's get into what's happening with Abby in this forecast. Hey, Abby.
Hey, Marcy. Did you have a good weekend?
I had a great weekend, but I mean, it's crazy. This province is crazy. I took the most lovely picture at St. Boniface yesterday. We were golfing, and it was like green and lush and blue sky. And then I got home, and I'm looking at all these pictures on my stream of northern Manitoba and the snow. And like not just like a little like it's going to melt away snow, like real snow.
Like it swept through Flin Flon and Thompson really bad yesterday. We're talking about, we're looking at 10 to 25 centimeters of snow in that part of the province. Borden also saw about 20 centimeters yesterday. And down south here, we're still seeing green grass on the lawn.
I know, there's leaves on the trees.
Yeah, there's still leaves on the tree, but today it's going to be more like a crisp one. Sunny, lots of sunshine in many areas. Just a slight chance of showers developing later this afternoon in a few southern spots. Right now in Winnipeg, it's 1 degree under mainly clear sky. Sunshine will hold through this morning before we see some clouds roll in later in the day. And there's only a slim chance of showers for Winnipeg towards the evening. The winds will stay light. The highs would reach around 8 degrees today. And similar conditions we're seeing in other southern parts of the province. Chilly start, temperatures between -3 right now and 0 in a lot of regions in the southern part of the province, while up north we're seeing temperatures between -2 and 0. But it's more like a cool one across the province, and most of the regions down south will warm up to about 8 degrees, and we'll see temperatures warm to near 5 degrees in the northern part of the province. Right now, Winnipeg, it's 1 and it's mainly clear outside.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Abby Adiemi on the air with us through the morning with your weather forecast. Corey Funk waddled into the studio gingerly.
A little sore from the weekend.
How'd it go? Corey had a bit of a milestone. He had your first run in how long?
Over a year. I did my first race in over
good
a
for
year
you.
since having a kiddo. So yeah.
Where were you? What was it?
It was in the beautiful Lac de Bonnie area. It was a race called the Groovy Granite. It's a 21K. Well, you do as many 7K loops as 3 7K loops through the beautiful Lac de Bonnie granite forest.
And why is it groovy?
Because they wanted to make it for some reason a 70s theme. So everyone kind of wears like wigs and dresses up like 70s hippies, and it was fun.
Corey's humble. Corey came in second.
Yes, and we had fun.
Like, come on now, right?
Yeah, and shout out to everyone who ran, especially in those slippery. It was raining, and it was all that slippery granite. So everyone was slipping and sliding through the forest, but beautiful out there. Beautiful.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
It's the equivalent of a half marathon. Like, I know, honestly.
Yeah.
Honestly, good for you.
Thank you.
You are here to talk about traffic.
Yes, so we are officially in highway closure due to snow season. So, and right now is of course up north. So, I'm going to start by saying that the highway that takes you essentially from the Highway 391 from Nelson House up to, I guess, Leap Rapids. Leap Rapids is actually closed right now due to those poor conditions from the snow over the weekend. And then also just generally all around there, you're seeing covered and partly covered conditions throughout northern Manitoba, particularly around Thompson through up to Gillam, as well as even further south of that. So there's also the highway, really poor conditions as well. Highway 39 that runs between Highway 10 and Highway 6. That also runs up to Snow Lake there, being reported as covered and slushy as well. So careful on the highways if you're in the north this morning. Might not be ideal conditions for you. Other than that, haven't heard of any other major issues. If you see something, though, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
Well, let's start with something fun, shall we? Calling all the yes and enthusiasts, the Winnipeg Improv Festival is back this week, and those prompts are going to be used by local and guest improv artists from all over Canada. Starts tomorrow. It runs every day till Saturday. There's a show every day. And there's some mime. There's some Halloween surprises, too, I understand. Stephen Sim is up early and on Zoom with us, Artistic Director of Winnipeg's Improv Festival. Good morning.
Good morning. How you doing?
I'm doing well. So how are you feeling?
Good.
I hear you've been picking up performers already that are coming to town.
Yeah, today is the day where I'm going to be at the airport a number of times picking up performers because that's just the way it goes.
Are you excited about it? Tell us what you're most excited about for the festival.
Most excited about is just for it to start to be on that stage, and then you hear the audience and you begin, and then it truly has started. For me, we've been in the planning stages and in the production stages for a while, so it already feels like it's begun. But to hear that audience for the first time, that's where it's official.
How did you fall in love with improv? Your Instagram handle at least says you accidentally dedicated your life to it.
Yeah, that's what I've been saying lately because I've been doing it for 30 plus years now, and which seems like too long. And then I'd have to do the math. And the math works out, so it must be true. I fell in love with it. Actually, I got into improv by writing. I was writing comedy sketches and that kind of thing, and doing it on the stage, and then starting to do a little bit of improv. And then improv killed my writing, and then I just kept doing it. And before I knew it, I was doing it for years and years and years. Traveled the world doing it.
What's the magic of it? It's been over 2 decades since the first improv festival. Why do you think that audiences continue to be attracted to it?
There's something immediate, obviously, about improv. It's the audience says something or reacts to something, and then that gets to be an input in the art that you're consuming. And so as an audience, you are watching the improvisers create something at the same time as you are witnessing it. And it's like the direct feedback from the audience. And I think that is the magical element to it. Also really funny.
It is also really funny. What can we expect this year? I alluded to this a little bit, but you guys have a Halloween night, which is fitting for the time of year, and then all kinds of other things.
Yeah, well, we have, so on Wednesday is our opening night, and then we're having a sample of just all of these mini ensembles created from all of our guests and our locals. And Tectonic, a local group, is going to be showcasing their work. And then on Thursday, we've got one of our guests, Ken Hall from Toronto, who's a great improviser, clown. You might recognize him from the Umbrella Academy. He's going to be directing the festival ensemble to create something new, and that's going to be really cool. We also have assembled a local ensemble of short form improv, and short form improv is like the Whose Line Is It Anyway styled improv. We put a call out for local performers to be a part of this short form ensemble, so they're going to be showcasing their work too on Thursday. So that's going to be a fun night. Then on Friday, you alluded to, it's the spooky night. It's the spooky night. The first part of the show, we're having a local author, Colin Dean, who's going to be reading some like spooky, cozy ghost stories. And that's going to serve as the inspiration for the improv scene. So the long form ensemble,
Oh, that's fun.
festival ensemble are going to like listen to this ghost story for the first time and then improvise little scenes inspired from it, which is super fun. And then in the second half of that spooky show, Club Soda Improv, a local group, is going to be doing a zombie themed long form improv show, which is like, do I have to say anything more than that? It's got zombies in it. It's a zombie show. It's really fun and it really actually scary. It's going to be spooky. It's going to be scary.
And then I know, I'll mention before you go this morning that over the weekend it rounds out also where on Sunday there's a couple of improv workshops too. So if people are going and they're inspired and they think, I could do this, I want to try this, and they're brave enough, they'll be supported to get on stage. Tickets. So there are tickets available at the door, I understand, or online where, Stephen?
Online, you can find us at winnipegimprov.com. And one of those improv workshops on the Sunday is a BIPOC workshop, and that's a free workshop that's happening because we also have some improvisers coming in from Seattle. They're improvisers and they're also mimes. We're doing an improv mime show on the Saturday. What are we doing? And then on the Sunday, there's the workshops. You can find us on winnipegimprov.com.
Fun stuff. Thanks for being
Google us.
Thanks for being with us this morning. Appreciate your time early. Special award for after a long weekend being the first guest up early in the show.
There we go.
Take care. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
So go online, check it out for tickets. You can also get tickets at the door. Stephen Sim, Artistic Director of Winnipeg's Improv Festival. All the shows are held, by the way, at the Gas Station Arts Centre on River. You know where that is. Tickets are $20. As I mentioned, you can find them online or at the door.
There are many people who bring success, innovation, accomplishment, and charity to our community. We'd like you to help us meet some of the best. CBC Future 40 will honor 10 Manitobans under 40 making a difference. Help us discover the inspiring people in our province by nominating a shining star in your community today. For details, visit cbc.ca/future40mb.
Well, in recent weeks, there's been a swath of drone flights in NATO airspace across multiple European countries. Some of the drone incidents are being blamed on Russia. The airspace incursions are prompting new conversations, though, about defense. Christian Leuprecht is on the show next. He's a professor at Royal Military College and Queen's University and senior fellow at the Macdonald-Laurier Institute. His latest book is called Military Operations in Response to Domestic Emergencies and Global Pandemics. I spoke with him at 6.
Good morning.
So for those who may not be up to date on all of this, why don't we start with the basics? What kind of disruption have these drones been causing all across Europe?
Yeah, Marcy, so listeners will be familiar with the disruption over the Copenhagen airport. That was probably the most widely reported. Those were drones that likely came off the Russian Shadow fleet. Disruptions also over the Oslo airports and the Munich airports, all of which civilian installations. We've had repeated flights and disruptions over military installations, both for disruptive purposes as well as intelligence gathering purposes. Repeated incursions into Romanian airspace by Russian drones as well as missiles. We've had the famous incursion over the Polish airspace, and we've had recent incursions by MiG fighter jets to the point where NATO is now publicly talking about possibly having to shoot down MiG fighter jets because it doesn't know their intent, whether that intent is hostile. And of course, in August, we saw both the targeting by Russia of an American-owned factory in Western Ukraine, as well as the targeting of the European Union delegations and the British Council in Kiev. In both those cases, Russia hit the buildings across the street and said, oops, that's too bad. So we see this increasing escalation in terms of what's known as salami slicing tactics. So these gray zone hybrid warfare tactics of opposing strategic dilemmas on European countries in multiple domains at the same time.
So I was going to ask you what is going on here. You described it as salami slicing tactics. Can you tell us a little bit more about it, though, and to what end?
Yeah, so we've had an increasing consensus among European populations in terms of their countries and the European Union in particular spending much more on defense and security. And so that inherently is worrying to Russia. So Russia is trying to change public opinion so that that equipment and that money stays in Europe. And so the effort here is to try to posture Russia as strong and trying to convince European countries to keep that money and equipment for themselves rather than giving it to Ukraine. But I think there's also another element here, which is that the war is not going according to plan for Putin. And Putin is increasingly worried about some of the NATO approaches to this. So you'll see, for instance, that the French Navy recently detained a Russian shadow ship. And that was a message to Moscow that NATO has the capability to interdict the shadow fleet. And if it did so at scale, it would cause significant problems for Russia's ability to pay for its war of aggression on Ukraine. And you'll see Putin getting quite nervous about Trump's recent musings about possibly providing Tomahawk cruise missiles to Ukraine. Now, I don't think this is about Trump worrying about half a dozen cruise missiles that the U.S. might provide for Ukraine. Rather, it's about what other capabilities and enablers might the United States provide to Ukraine, because Ukraine is building its own long-range fires and it's building its own cruise missiles. And if we got American technology to do that, that would be a significant force multiplier and would have quite the consequences for Ukraine's ability to disrupt Russian lines of supply and communication.
What do you think all of this together tells us about NATO preparedness then, or the gaps in the system when you look at it?
So we know that in terms of NATO capability gaps, we're at about 50% of where we need to be. And so NATO, together with the European Union, is aggressively investing in a host of capabilities, but in particular what's known as strategic enablers. So that is to say intelligence, in particular space-based intelligence and other capabilities, command and control capabilities, as well as strategic airlift and refueling capabilities. And so you'll see, in particular, the European Union helping European countries build those out over the next 5 to 10 years, both so that European member countries can act more autonomously in their neighborhood, but not in competition with NATO, but rather in complementarity with NATO, so that the United States can take its scarce resources and focus on the Indo-Pacific, in particular on deterring and containing China in the Indo-Pacific. And the European Union is playing a very important role in that coordination function.
What does all of this mean for Canada? I know you're going to say we have to increase defense spending.
So it's actually what this means for Canada. It's the same thing that it means for Europe and the European Union. We need to decide what is it that we want to and need to procure. We need to decide how we're going to procure it. And you will have seen that the Prime Minister has shifted his discourse. During the election, he talked about a defense procurement agency. Now he's talking about a defense investment agency. Why that shift? Because people like me for months have been talking about the shelves are empty. What you want, you cannot just buy on the open market. So we're going to need to invest in order to build those capabilities so we can actually procure them. And like European member countries, we need to figure out how to pay for this, how to finance it. So one is borrowing, one is to be able to export hydrocarbons to pay for it, to provide critical minerals to our allies, since China is playing hardball around rare earths and critical minerals. But it's also about bringing down the cost of procurement and of innovation, because this equipment is extremely expensive. And so the United States, for instance, so we pay 2 to 4 times as much per piece of equipment that we procure than the United States, because we don't have the economies of scale. And so working together with European Union members allows us to get those economies of scale, bring down the cost of procurement, but also reduce the costs of innovation by working together with other high technology countries.
And just last, Christian, I mean, in the meantime, how do you tackle the strategy, as you described it, back to that salami slicing with security measures? How do we do that?
Well, one is to shift public opinion. And we've seen this in Europe. About 2/3 of Europeans are now strongly, European populations like Canadian population were long ambivalent about defense spending. No longer. 2/3 of Europeans are now staunchly in favor of a more robust defense posture, of spending more on defense, of building out bigger defense capabilities. And that's, of course, an important part of legitimating these large defense expenditures. 2/3 of Europeans now see Russia as the greatest threat to European security, stability, and prosperity. So making sure that politicians actually have the social and public license to spend the amounts of money that they do, but also the opportunities to work together. And here the European Union has been really important. So its Security Action for Europe program, 750 billion euros, 600 billion of that is a loan facility for countries that don't have bona fide credit ratings so that they can borrow to procure for their defense. 150 billion is to get countries to work together on defense procurement, investment, and innovations. That money is fully subscribed. The multi-year fiscal framework, the next multi-year fiscal framework in the European Union will invest 5 times as much likely in
so
defense.
That's critical.
And the opportunity here for Europe to work together with Canada on some of those key capabilities.
Always appreciate your time. Thank you.
It's been my pleasure, Marcy. Have a good morning.
Christian Leuprecht, professor of the Royal Military College and Queen's University. Your local news is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, there's a chill in the air, a post-Thanksgiving chill. It is 1 degree in downtown Winnipeg. We start the day with sun, then increasing clouds with a slight chance of showers and a high today of 8. A lot of uncertainty over the next steps for Gaza. Phase 1 of the ceasefire deal saw 20 Israeli hostages freed by Hamas and hundreds of Palestinian prisoners released by Israel. But grieving Israeli families are angry the remains of only 4 out of 28 deceased hostages have been handed over. We'll hear the latest developments coming up on World Report at 7. The executive director of Congregation Shari Zedek here in Winnipeg says Monday's Israeli hostage release was a bittersweet moment. Reina Sector Elbaz's children knew 2 of the nearly 1,200 Israeli victims of the October 7th attacks 2 years ago. She says having the hostages returned brings her hope for peace.
I'm elated that these people have come home, watching the families and the way they're being welcomed back into their homes, but also by the community. We feel a connection to all of these people. So I'm so overjoyed. I'm sad for the families that have not received the remains of their loved ones yet.
A commemorative display of about 1,200 small Israeli flags are planted in the grounds outside the synagogue to honor Israel's victims. Elbaz says they will be put up every year before October 7th. Federal Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre weighed in on the Gaza peace deal at a stop in Winnipeg yesterday. As the living hostages returned to Israel and the release of hundreds of Palestinian detainees began, Poilievre says he hopes peace in the area can be maintained.
We want a peaceful resolution to this dispute, and so that all the Abrahamic peoples of the world can enjoy the Holy Land and Israel, and can live in peace next to the Palestinian people.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Carney calls Monday's diplomatic meeting a new and important chapter. On social media, Carney says his government's focused on peace and security in the Middle East, while also underscoring the need for aid to be delivered. A Manitoba school principal is seeking an order to bar an activist from implying she promoted child pornography. Carmen Collegiate's Mary Reimer says in a lawsuit comments from Raylan Fox have irreparably harmed her reputation. Fox was behind a petition calling on the Prairie Rose School Division to block some books being available to students. She's continued to campaign against material she says is sexually explicit. James Turk at the Toronto Metropolitan University Centre for Free Expression says activists like Fox have increasingly been targeting schools.
Much of their focus is on schools and on what they call pornographic books in schools that have to be removed.
Fox declined comment. In court filings, she denies her statements were defamatory. They grew up hunting, fishing, and trapping. And now 2 members of Opaskwayak Cree Nation are making sure they can use their skills to help their community, from accessing food to teaching the next generation how to take care of the land. CBC's Felicia Adam traveled to Opaskwayak Cree Nation.
Crystal and Omar Constant are often here on the Saskatchewan River.
There you go.
Setting lines to catch sturgeon and hunting moose. The pair are part of the Diamond Willow Traditional Hunting and Gathering Club, making sure people in Opaskwayak Cree Nation have access to traditional and healthy foods at a time when costs have gone up.
It's a teaching that came from my parents and from my uncles, from my side, and that whatever you get, you share.
We are gifted from the land, and the land belongs to all of our people, you know, and we share that back.
Alongside helping community members, they're also teaching the next generation, making sure they know how to be caretakers of the land and respect the animals they share the land with. Felicia Adam, CBC News, Opaskwayak Cree Nation.
Disappointment in Toronto.
Grounded to third, to second one, to first, to end the ballgame.
The Toronto Blue Jays lost their second game last night against the Seattle Mariners in the American League Championship Series. Seattle beating Toronto 10-3. The Mariners now lead that series with 2 wins. Game 3 goes tomorrow in Seattle. The Winnipeg Jets, though, notch a Thanksgiving Day win on Long Island.
Getting better every day. That's what we talked about, him and I, that it wasn't going to come in one foul swoop. Like every day he's gotten better and better, and I think he's recognizing, just how to kind of play the game with his hockey smarts, and he's just getting back up to speed. And I thought he was fantastic.
Well, if you didn't know who Coach Scott Arniel was talking about there, it is, of course, Jonathan Toews, who recorded his first point as a Jet, getting an assist. And getting his first start in net, Eric Comrie with 34 saves. The Jets now head to Philadelphia to face the Flyers on Thursday. You can find more news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Yeah, I spent a lot of my weekend watching sports.
Yes.
The Bombers.
The Bombers.
Oh, the Bombers. And the Jays.
You know, I watched that whole game thinking they're going to have a big inning. They're going to have a big inning. They didn't have a big inning.
No, they just got beat. We'll have to see what happens. They're in tough now because they're on the road for 3 and they have to take 2 of them.
Yeah, they do. And you know what, though? The commentators yesterday were saying the Jays have won. They have swept the Mariners in Seattle earlier this season, so maybe there's hope there.
They're going to have to find it. All right, thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Let's get into what's happening in the weather forecast. There's certainly hope in it after the snow over the last few days in the north of Manitoba. Abby.
And a lot of people waking up to chilly conditions this morning. However, we will see sunshine through the morning into your lunch break period. However, we do have a slight chance of showers this afternoon in some areas. In Winnipeg, we're looking at 1 degree right now, mainly clear outside. We do warm up into the afternoon. We'll see temperatures climb to around 8 degrees, and that would come with some clouds and a very slim chance of showers later in the day. Similar conditions we're seeing in the Pembina Valley region. We're looking at -1 at this time. Also clear there. Temperatures will warm to around 7 degrees later. Out in the Westman region, tracking it from Brandon towards Nipawin and towards Minnedosa, we're seeing clear conditions right now. -3 we're spotting in that region. Clouds will increase through the morning. A slim chance of showers also. A high about 7 degrees. Looking at the Parkland region, Dauphin, Russell, all the way down to Riding Mountain, we're seeing -4 in those areas. Clear also this time. Expect a sunny morning. Some clouds will build later, but no big rain risk in the forecast. We should see highs around 8 for today. For the Interlake region, Gimli is around -2 and clear at the moment. Clouds will build later in the afternoon and we'll see highs around 8 degrees. For the powerful influence surrounding areas, we're looking at temperatures between -3 and -1. Clear also out there. The sun is going to hold for most of the day. We'll see temperatures get to around 4 degrees with light winds. Up in Thompson and surrounding communities, we're looking at -3 at this time. Expect a mix of sun and clouds. That should clear towards midday and we'll see you warm to about 4 degrees. In Churchill and York region, we're looking at -1 at this time. Also clear conditions. Cloud will increase later and we'll see the highs get to about 5 degrees. Tonight is going to be staying partly cloudy. So all in all, Marcy, it's going to be more like a chilly start and more of sunshine for the morning, and some clouds will roll in later. Just a few showers and some spots in the afternoon. Winnipeg, we are currently at 1. and we're going to reach about 8 degrees today.
All right, so it should be pretty normal in terms of the commute down south, but we do have issues in the north because of the weather.
Yes, those highways, lots of covered and partly covered conditions up north, according to Manitoba 511. There is actually a closure as well. So Highway 391 between Nelson House and Leaf Rapids right now is closed right now due to those poor conditions. But also you're seeing covered conditions, particularly Highway 39, which takes you roughly from Cranberry Portage to Manabridge area, roughly. That includes the Snow Lake Highway. Very, very poor condition, so look out for that. Other than that, though, haven't heard of anything down south here, but if you do see something going on, do give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
Thanks, Corey.
Thank you.
After our business news, we're actually going to take you back to the snow zone and hear what some folks had to say about all of this. White stuff falling. Let's get to business news right now. Hallie Cotnam is here this morning with our business report. Good morning, Hallie.
Good morning, Marcy.
So let's start with learning more about the Canadian economist who was honored with the Nobel Memorial Prize.
Yeah, Peter Howitt among a group of 3 academics to win. It's for their research into how new technologies replace older ones, a concept in economics known as creative destruction. Howitt used math to explain how it all works. And he found out that he had won after a Swedish reporter called his wife's phone to try and get reaction, and even before the committee could reach him. And then shortly after receiving the official word, he did a brief interview with the Nobel Prize website.
My future is going to involve, I think, less golf and more economics than I had anticipated.
Does that idea fill you with pleasure?
It certainly does. It certainly does.
So the 79-year-old Marcy, now retired from teaching, lives in North Carolina. He studied economics at McGill in Montreal, then got his master's at Western University in London. And it was at Western where he would eventually teach a grad student named Tiff Macklem in 1984.
I can still remember a few aha moments in his classes where, because of his explanation, I could understand something that the day before, seemed impenetrable.
That's Tiff Macklem, the current governor of the Bank of Canada. So Howitt and the other winners will share $1.6 million in prize money, and they'll also receive an 18-karat gold medal and a diploma. And speaking of gold, it hit a new record, $4,179 an ounce. Meanwhile, this morning, overseas markets are a sea of red, falling to a 2-week low over trade tensions, Marcy.
Next, who's already Christmas shopping?
Not me. Are you? Really?
I really like Christmas. I'm one of those people, mostly decorations. I'm one of those people who just walks right by the Halloween stuff. But I usually chill it out until after Remembrance Day. I, don't celebrate that. But but apparently there's quite a few people that are really into it.
Yeah, more than 20% of consumers have started or will start in October. This is according to the Deloitte Canada's annual holiday spending report out this morning. By the way, that's up 15% from last year. So you're not alone, Marcy. But even if you haven't started, the survey explores what people expect to spend. Not surprisingly, all the uncertainty about the economy is preying on people's minds. And because of that, holiday spending is projected to rise, but only by a modest 3%. The report also predicts that Gen Zs and millennials will spend nearly half of their holiday budget online. Shauna Conway is a partner at Deloitte Canada and heads up its retail practice.
Canadians, regardless of the economic conditions, they're still spending, which actually is not a bad thing for the economy. But we are seeing non-gift purchases, so that individual spending on myself and non-discretionary purchases, that's going down year over year by about 8%.
So I thought that was pretty interesting, Marcy. I mean, we might be spending as much or more on others, but we're spending quite a bit less on ourselves. The holiday spending report also asks consumers how they're feeling generally about pocketbook issues. Nearly half, or 46%, expect the economy to worsen next year. That's up from 36% last year. And 80% worried about the impact of tariffs on the Canadian economy.
So let's end there because they start today. New U.S. tariffs kick in that will hurt Canadians.
Yeah, this is the softwood producers that are going to be hit by an additional 10% tariff today on lumber shipments to the U.S. That raises the total levy to more than 45%. Also effective today, exports of upholstered furniture, kitchen cabinets, vanities face new tariffs of 25%. We knew these tariffs were coming, but you're right, today is the day that they kick in. U.S. President Trump says lumber and furniture imports are eroding U.S. national security. He applied the new duties by invoking that Section 232 of the Trade Trade Act. Interestingly, no carve-outs for goods that comply with CUSMA, which brings me back around to Peter Howitt, the Canadian winner of the Nobel Economics Prize. He's warning of, quote, dark clouds ahead as trade disruptions with the U.S. continue.
All right. Thanks, Hallie.
Thanks, Marcy.
That's Hallie Cotton with our business news. She joins us every morning at this time. And by the way, we have calls out to some of those manufacturers, those that make furniture like Palliser in Manitoba, but also those that make cabinets like Decor in Winkler, where we were visiting. And they were lovely. That was our community studio when we were out there, in Morden, rather, where we were. So we have calls to some of our makers here to find out how they'll be impacted. It is 6:44 a.m. on 89.3. You're on CBC this morning. I'm Marcy Marcusa. It's mainly clear and 1 degree. Well, coming up after 7 o'clock, one of the most well-known cases in Canada is the subject of a new CBC podcast called See You in Court.
Late-breaking story on the CBC. A nation whispers we always knew that he'd go free. They add you can't be fond of living in the past. If you are, then there's no way that you're gonna last. We kings and pretty things.
The tragically hip, of course, Wheat Kings, the tune about David Milgaard, a teenager born in our province who would be robbed of his life due to a wrongful murder conviction. His mom, Joyce, would spend her life and a lot of her time here in Winnipeg fighting for his freedom. The case will be on the new CBC podcast, See You in Court. We'll dig into that coming up after 7. Laura Lynch is going to join us, by the way, for that look. And it'll be interesting because she covered some of what was happening here in Winnipeg through that case. And now she's going to be part of hosting this podcast. So she'll join us after 7. Right now, I don't know if you were welcoming it or not, but whether you liked it or not, wet, heavy snow blanketed northern Manitoba yesterday during the season's first major storm. As we've been sharing, more than 30 centimeters of snowfall were expected along this long line from Flin Flon to Thompson, falling and starting on Sunday. Now, what started out as rain kind of moved to snow overnight. And then yesterday, people woke up to this white canvas, no power, and fallen trees. We're showing some images now. Look at that. Just the images coming up on our YouTube stream. A lot of these coming from listeners writing in and viewers. Just trees, leaning over in that white blanketed snow and all of the ice all over the place. And then a gorgeous summertime picture of a lake and a blue sky to remind us how quickly all this changed. Look at that. It's like just within hours, everything shifted. CBC's Gavin Axelrod connected with Carrie Atkinson. She's deputy mayor for the town of The Pas.
So with me not having power in my house, it was having to get into my vehicle and driving around to physically see what some of the Facebook messages that were going on. What I noticed was that it was very hard to open my door. That being said, there wasn't a lot of snow that had accumulated, but the snow is extremely heavy and extremely wet. There's fallen trees around everywhere. There are power lines that are down. There's different areas in town where a lot of water has accumulated on the streets that people probably should avoid if they can. And it's just best on days like this to try and stay home if you can.
For people who might be without power but are maybe going to hear some of this later, what would you want them to know, I guess, about what the best course of action would be for them to do right now?
One thing people can do, which I have been doing today, is make sure that you check the sump pumps in your house. If you do not have power, your sump pump cannot drain unless you have a generator system that's hooked up. So check your sump pumps, see if they're close to the top. If they are, manually bail them, because that's what I've been doing today as well, is I've been manually bailing my sump pump to make sure that my house does not flood.
Is this is this normal kind of weather for up north in the Pas at this point in the year from what you've seen in the past?
Now, yesterday and today is not normal weather for October. Like yesterday, it rained all day long. All day long. I've lived here for 20 years, and I do not remember having rain accumulation like we had yesterday. It was a downpour all day. And then once the snow started to fall, one just worked against the other, right? Like the trees in my backyard, they're extremely stressed. the majority of the trees, like I have birch trees as well as fir trees in my backyard, and the majority of them are bent over halfway. Like they're stressed from all the weight from the rain as well as the snow.
Alyssa Oct.14, and I'm co-owner of Wekusko Falls Lodge. We're exactly 15 kilometers outside of Snow Lake.
Walk me through like what it's been like there the past few hours from last night to this morning.
Sure. Well, we knew the storm was coming because they were warning us about it. And once the rain started to turn to snow, it got pretty heavy and wet here. We lost power late in the evening. And then with the silence in the homes, it was pretty easy to hear the trees starting to crack. So lots of the tops of trees, or the entire tree in general, were falling all around. So we ended up with a tree pretty early on over our truck and our quad. And I can see in the neighborhood that there's going to be a lot of tree removal required in order for the roads to be open. We've been without power now for about 13 hours. I'm not really sure how long that will last, but we ourselves are preparing for a day or two without power.
When will you sort of be able to assess kind of like how much damage has been done and sort of how you sort of clean up from all that?
Well, we'll have to wait for the snow to melt, so it will probably take a couple of days to get the snow all removed, and then as it melts, we'll be able to see where the tree damage and trees fall and need to be cleaned up. So we're looking at easily 5 days of work. Yeah, I'm hoping that everybody in the neighborhood is prepared to be without power for a while. We're thankful it's not freezing temperatures, so we're able to stay warm in our homes with very little power supply. But definitely people are going to be looking for hot food and a warm shower somewhere.
So to be clear, those conversations were yesterday, a bit of a roundup. CBC's Gavin Axelrod with Alyssa Bogdan, who's the co-owner of Wekusko Falls Lodge, about 10 kilometers northeast of Snow Lake, speaking yesterday. You also heard from Carrie Atkinson, Deputy Mayor for the town of the Paw. Now, while that cleanup continues, the weather should hold. It's supposed to be clear and sunny through the Paw in those regions today, but cold. So hopefully people will be able to dig out and be okay. And also there are still, we understand, some power issues in the north and in those communities that were affected by this storm system. If you want to read about the latest, check out our website this morning at cbc.ca/Manitoba. It is now 8 minutes to 7 o'clock. And next on the show, let's turn our attention to national politics. Prime Minister Mark Carney traveled to Egypt yesterday to witness that signing of what's being called the historic Middle East peace deal that was brokered by the U.S. President Donald Trump. Back home, Carney is also focused on a November 4th deadline to deliver that federal budget that will define his government's priorities over the next many months. Ryan Tumulty is with us, as he is many Tuesdays here on the show, political reporter with the Toronto Star. Hey there, Ryan.
Hey there.
So tell us about Carney's role at the Peace Summit in Egypt yesterday.
Yeah, I would say he went largely as a witness. Canada's not a signatory to this deal. Certainly we welcome it as a country, but, we were not involved in the negotiations. But I do think, there were a lot of world leaders there from the Middle East and from across Europe. And I do think there is a recognition that to make this deal a reality, the whole international community is going to have to be on board. And so that's why I think, the signatories to this deal, the United States and Qatar, Turkey, who helped negotiate it, wanted the whole international community there.
Could it mean that in the future, though, what do you see as Canada's involvement in the peace process, and I guess also in the rebuilding of Gaza, which is the big thing?
Yeah, I think we're going to have a big role in both of those things. We're already one of the biggest donors to Gaza. Canada has donated $400 million there. And so I think, as we move into the rebuild, I think there'll be more pressure on Canada to keep doing that. Gaza needs its entire basic infrastructure restored. Hospitals, water treatment, schools, all of that was destroyed over the course of the 2-year conflict. So I think there's going to be real pressure on Canada to contribute to that rebuild.
Let's turn back home now, our attention back home. Carney's government with his budget coming out on November 4th. That's going to come up quick. How's he going to do this? I mean, with all the pressures, tell us already about how he's laying the table of some of the announcements that already came last week.
Yeah, so last Friday we got a couple of announcements. The Canada Strong Pass, this is the pass for free admission to museums and national parks. That was renewed for the holiday season and for next summer. He announced the school lunch program is going to be made permanent. And he announced that the CRA is going to start automatically filing taxes for low-income Canadians, essentially meaning that they won't have to go through an accountant or get online software. They'll be able to, with the CRA, get a fully prepared tax return ready to go. They just have to sort of accept it. That's a big measure. It doesn't seem like one potentially, but a lot of low-income Canadians don't file because they don't think they owe anything. They don't want to go through the hassle or spend the money to file. But that means they miss out on benefits, stuff like the Canada Child Benefit and the disability benefit. They don't get them because they don't file. And so this has, I've talked to a few poverty advocates who say this has something that could potentially be very big for lifting people out of poverty without necessarily creating a new program.
I'm curious whether or not, like, obviously they're not going to, if somebody is in poverty and they haven't filed, well, they won't have to pay, I'm guessing, a penalty for not filing, because that would go against them what they would bring in from a benefit. It may not work out.
Yeah, no, there won't be. I don't think there will be any penalties for not filing. I mean, the way the government has set this up is it's people who fall under, in terms of their income, under what's called the basic personal amount, the amount that you can earn without paying any taxes. That's the people they're targeting first. So none of these people in theory should owe any taxes. In fact, they should be set for refunds. But again, refunds they're not getting because they're not filing.
Mm-hmm. What do you expect in terms of cuts in spending and the implication of that in this budget?
Yeah, I think we will see cuts. The government's been pretty clear on that. The finance minister was looking for 15% from all departments. They worked on those plans over the summer. They haven't revealed exactly how they're going to hit that, but all the departments were looking for ways to do it. And I think you're going to see programs disappear. I think there are probably going to be jobs that disappear. It's hard to cut 15% from a government department without costing people jobs. So that's certainly something that I think will be a big part of the budget. That is going to be a story on the side of the budget as well of, where are these cuts coming from and maybe what things are Canadians going to have to do without.
And what else are you expecting to see in here?
Yeah, I'm expecting to see some funding for major projects. The government has unveiled this kind of list of projects. A lot of them just needed regulatory help, but I think some of them are going to need financial assistance from the government to get going. On the top of that list in Manitoba, for me, probably, I don't see how the Port of Churchill, for example, gets going without a boost from the federal government.
It can't.
So I think that's something that's going to potentially be part of the budget. That's something I'll certainly be watching for.
All right, Ryan, thanks very much for the analysis.
All right, take care.
Take care, you too. That's Ryan Tumulty, political reporter with the Toronto Star. And my response to it can't is just looking at the analysis that we've done over the many years. You can't really wrap your head around how that would be possible, given what would be needed to actually make that a reality up north. All right, let's get into what's happening with Heather Wells in our Manitoba headlines. Good morning, Heather.
Good morning. Well, Jewish and Palestinian leaders locally tell CBC they are cautiously optimistic about a U.S. brokered ceasefire deal between Hamas and Israel. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre also expressing that same hope yesterday during a stop in Winnipeg. A husband and wife duo are making sure their northern Manitoba community has access to traditional foods. Omar and Crystal Constant often distribute food to low-income families in Opaskwayak Cree Nation and to elders. We're going to take you to OCN coming up in our next local news at 7:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
Thanks.
Well, let's take you north now with the traffic and highway conditions, that is. Covered and partly covered in snow after that dump yesterday. Highway 391 to Leaf, for example, is closed actually due to snow still. So is Highway 39 between number 10 and 6. Not closed, rather, but slushy and challenging. Call us if you're having a problem in the city or outside, wherever your city is, and on the highways. You can call us 788-3093. That's your traffic line. And we'll pass it along all over Manitoba if there's a problem. Weather-wise, there shouldn't be. Things should be clearing out and melting. It's mainly clear in Winnipeg. 1 in Winnipeg. Mainly sunny for the day, a high of 8. 30% chance of showers late this afternoon. And we, in fact, are going to have a couple of days of showers on the back of this. In the next half hour of the program, Maybe you're someone who likes green living, but have you thought about green dying? A Winnipeg cemetery is now offering natural burials. We'll find out how that came about and how it works. So stay tuned for that. Also, See You in Court. One of the podcast episodes coming up on CBC is going to be all about David Milgaard, born in Winnipeg, known across Canada for his wrongful murder conviction. So we'll get into the podcast with a bit of a preview coming up with Laura Lynch. And also in the next hour of the show, last week, a mother talked about her daughter staying home from school, afraid after she was allegedly attacked by 5 girls in the school bathroom at a Winnipeg school. What is the best way to deal with violence and with bullying in schools? We asked high school students for their thoughts, and that's coming up in the next hour. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio on CBC. Stay tuned.
On The Current.
The future is gonna be amazing!
From politics to social media to cars and the space race, Elon Musk's influence is everywhere. But what motivates him and what explains him? Journalist Jacob Silverman on the backstory of Elon Musk on The Current with guest host Pia Chattopadhyay this morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
Report. Good morning, I'm Marcia Young. There is a lot of uncertainty over the next steps for Gaza. Phase 1 of the ceasefire deal saw 20 Israeli hostages freed by Hamas and hundreds of Palestinian prisoners released by Israel. But grieving Israeli families are angry the remains of only 4 out of 28 deceased hostages have been handed over. Briar Stewart has more from Jerusalem.
Outside of the Forensic Institute in Tel Aviv, a small crowd looks on as vans pull up carrying the remains of 4 hostages that have been returned from Gaza. Under the deal, Israel is expecting the bodies of an estimated 24 additional hostages.
No indication of the timeline yet.
Daniel Lifshit's grandparents were taken hostage. His grandmother was released, his grandfather was killed, and his body was returned earlier this year.
But we have to make sure that some leverages as the rebuilding Gaza or anything else will not be taken until everyone are back home.
In Gaza, the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas is holding, but there have been clashes between Hamas and local clans. And there are reports that Hamas has executed a few individuals that it's accused of collaborating with Israel. With the power vacuum now in place, the security situation remains precarious.
Very important, critical step.
Hiba Husseini is a lawyer and has advised the Palestinian team during previous negotiations. She's based in East Jerusalem. There are few details about who will govern Gaza, but she says there needs to be strong Palestinian oversight. Otherwise, it feels like past colonialism.
The peace plan that proposes a committee of internationals, this is all good and well, but it has the making of the British mandate. This is what Palestinians are talking about.
Under the U.S. plan, a peace board would be set up, and Trump has mused about even being on it as the chair. Briar Stewart, CBC News, Jerusalem.
Canadian lumber is taking another hit from U.S. President Donald Trump's trade war. A new tariff announced last month is now in effect. It is a global 10% tariff on all softwood lumber and timber entering the U.S. This is on top of the steep anti-dumping duties already in place. Some finished wood products like cabinets, vanities, and upholstered furniture are also affected. They will face a 25% tariff that will increase again on January 1st. Hundreds of thousands of students in Alberta are still not back at school. The teachers' strike is entering its second week. Bargaining resumes today, but the union and the province cannot agree on some key issues. Julia Wong reports.
As they watch their kids have fun at this Edmonton indoor playground, for many parents in Alberta, the teachers' strike is top of mind.
It's not easy, but we're getting through it.
Helshi Garrido has 2 kids, a 6-year-old and a 14-year-old. Both have been out of school since last Monday, when 51,000 teachers walked off the job.
Yeah, I just hope they can get into an agreement. And so sometimes both sides have to compromise a little. And at the end of the day, it is for them and for the kids.
Bargaining resumes Tuesday. Teachers overwhelmingly rejected the last contract offer from their employer. The union says classroom sizes, more supports for students with complexities, and better pay are the main sticking points.
It's a really weird feeling not to be in the schools, not to be with the kids.
Heather Conroy Mandrick has been a kindergarten teacher for 25 years. Being on strike has been hard, she says.
We just feel like we're not as connected to the world anymore. We kind of feel, we're floating. There's a lot of uncertainty.
She has enough saved up for 2 weeks, but with no strike pay, Conroy Mandrick is falling back on a line of credit.
And so the line of credit is just that security to make sure that at the end of the day, it doesn't change our whole life plan, this strike.
The teachers union says it has brought proposals forward. A spokesperson for Alberta's education minister says those are under review. Julia Wong, CBC News, Edmonton.
Hundreds of Canadians die on the job each year. And in Calgary, the family of one of those people wants to see harsher penalties for employers when it happens. Anis Haydari reports.
This is not real. This can't be happening right now.
Emily Gofton remembers the death of her boyfriend, Liam Johnston, like it was yesterday.
And it was completely preventable. It never should have happened.
2 years ago, 27-year-old Johnston died in a Calgary backyard when he was buried under the collapsing walls of a sewer line excavation. Today, his girlfriend says she believes there would be fewer deaths if workplace fatalities were prosecuted criminally.
That would be gratifying and give us a sense of closure to know Liam didn't die for nothing.
Legislation called the Westray Law allows for criminal prosecutions after workplace injuries or deaths. But one lawyer points out the few cases underway right now may not be targeting the corner office.
The field level supervisors are the ones going to jail right now, not the directors, not the owner of the company, and not the chief executive officers.
David Myrall has been both the prosecutor and defense lawyer in workplace safety cases. He says he's not sure more charges would change things. But if a boss got charged?
The deterrent value, I think it would be discussed in every boardroom across Canada.
As for Liam Johnston's case in Calgary, it's unclear whether criminal charges are warranted. The company is facing regulatory charges, including failing to ensure workers were protected from the collapse of an excavation wall. The company previously said it had shoring on site, but tragedy happened, quote, at some point while installing it. The company is next in court on October 16th. Anis Haydari, CBC News, Calgary.
Police in Bogota say 2 Venezuelan activists who are now living in Colombia have been shot, and it appears to have been a targeted attack. National police say the men were fired on as they left a building together. They are now in hospital in stable condition. One of the men founded the Venezuelan Observatory of LGBTQ plus violence. The other is a political analyst. They say they were being persecuted by the Maduro regime in Venezuela, so they moved to Colombia. Colombia's attorney general is being urged to investigate who is responsible for the attack. A fire at a factory in Bangladesh has left at least 9 people dead. Officials say it happened at a garment factory in the capital Dhaka. Several other people are injured. Emergency crews expect the number of dead to go up. There's no word on what caused the fire, but Bangladesh has a history of factory fires. They've been blamed on a lack of building code upkeep and monitoring. India and Canada are working on rebuilding their ties through economic diplomacy. Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister, Anita Anand, is wrapping up a 2-day visit to India. It is an effort to strengthen bilateral investments after years of tension over allegation of India's involvement in the murder of a Canadian citizen. Our South Asia correspondent Salima Shivji sat down with Anita Anand in Mumbai.
I'm pleased to welcome you to India.
We are so grateful. A flurry of pleasantries kicked off the diplomatic visit, the first official trip to India for Canada's Foreign Minister Anita Anand, before she and her Indian counterpart revealed how they plan to repair the strained relationship. Anand calls the visit a success.
Elevating our relationship. Now we are moving forward from October September 2023.
When then Prime Minister Justin Trudeau accused India of playing a role in the killing of a Canadian Sikh activist on Canadian soil. New Delhi called the allegations absurd. Several court cases are pending as Canadian authorities continue to investigate. But now that Mark Carney has taken over as Prime Minister, there's been an adjustment on the diplomatic front, and the world has changed, Anand says.
We are in a moment where economic diplomacy, pragmatism is of crucial importance.
The focus now is on trade, investment in critical minerals, and AI technology. But Anand says Canadian security concerns are still top of mind.
At every stage, in every conversation, I made sure to bring up many topics within the public safety mold, including transnational repression.
Topics that could still cause tensions to flare. A Sikh activist group pushing for Punjabi independence will stage another referendum next month in Ottawa, a move that's sure to anger Narendra Modi's government. Salima Shivji, CBC News, Mumbai.
And finally, it's being called a powerful moment of representation. Canadian pop star Shawn Mendes invited Indigenous artist Tia Wood to join him on stage. The Korean Salish singer-songwriter delivered a passionate duet with Mendes during his Sunday show in Vancouver. 26-year-old Tia Wood is quickly making her mark on the Canadian music scene. The Alberta-born singer from Saddle Lake Cree Nation is also a Juno nominee. That's World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We're live in downtown Winnipeg on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and on YouTube or wherever you're joining us. Thanks for being here. Tuesday morning, if you did have a long weekend, I hope it was a good one. We got a clear sky this morning in Winnipeg, 1 degree, and the snow has settled in the north. You still might be without power in some places, though. This hour on the program, on the heels of a girl who her mother says was not just bullied in school, but attacked in a bathroom by 5 other girls, allegedly, we are looking at the idea of violence and, yes, bullying in schools through the eyes of some high school students. CBC's Jim Agapito spoke with them, and we're going to hear that this hour on the program. Also this hour on the show, a local cemetery in Winnipeg is turning back the clock on the way that we deal with death. They're starting natural burials, so we'll find out more about how that works and where this is happening. And in just a moment, David Milgaard, born here in Winnipeg and known across Canada for his wrongful murder conviction, is the subject of a new CBC podcast called See You in Court, and we're going to episode. We're going to hear more about that. Right now, though, Heather Wells is here to update news stories. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, Manitoba Hydro crews have now restored power to thousands of homes and businesses after storms over the Thanksgiving weekend. However, 4,500 customers are still in the dark. That's in areas in central, northern, and eastern Manitoba. About 4,500 customers are still in the dark after upwards of 30 centimeters of heavy snow and high winds. A southern Manitoba principal is suing a conservative activist for defamation. Carmen Collegiate Principal Mary Reimer says Raylan Fox has insinuated Reimer groomed children and promoted child pornography, making those insinuations on social media. Fox has campaigned to remove books in school libraries, which she says are sexually explicit, including at the Carmen Collegiate. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 7:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
Thanks.
Abby Adeyemi, the forecast.
A chilly start to your day with plenty of sunshine, just a slim chance of showers this afternoon in just some spots in the southern part of the province. Winnipeg right now, 1 degree under mainly clear conditions. We'll see a mix of sun and clouds through the day, a slim chance of showers, a high near 8 degrees, and then tonight more cloudy conditions. And across the south, we're seeing -5 in Brandon and -2 in Gimli at this time. The power, we're looking at -1 in that area, and Thompson is currently -3. But Winnipeg, we are at 1, warming up to about 8 degrees later today.
Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
All right, Corey Funk.
391 up north closed right now. That's between Nelson House and Leaf Rapids due to those poor conditions as well. Highway 39, very poor conditions there. Not closed, but covered between Cranberry Portage or Highway 10 and Highway 6. That includes Snow Lake as well. So very poor conditions in general up north still from that big snow over the weekend. Could be quite slushy for you out there. If you see anything else still going on, give me a call on the CBC commuter line, 204-788-3093.
I just want to share a nice post we got with you, Corey, and with the listeners as well. We were up in Lac du Bonnet to cover the devastation of the wildfires in May and the loss of life there, too. So we were in this little pocket, the street where, it was neighbors that lost their lives in those fires. And then, of course, property, swaths of forest, all kinds of things. Gay Kirby was one of the people we met when we were up there. Remember Gay?
I remember Gay,
yeah, she joined us on the air. She talked about being airlifted out. I mean, very dramatic saving of her life, really. She wrote to me on Facebook and with photos, and I encourage everyone to go to my page if you want to see this. She wrote, after the Lac du Bonnet fire, here's what our family did this Thanksgiving weekend. We planted new trees. So you see them all out there in, amidst sort of where the debris would be and where the fire zone was, and they're planting new life. And I just thought that was a beautiful way to spend Thanksgiving.
And I can tell you, it is beautiful out there. I just happened to be out there this weekend as well, and there was one point where we were up on the Granic overlooking the forest. And I know that there was a forest fire there at some point, but there's still so much beauty out there. The yellow, the colors, so beautiful place and beautiful people, and they're clearly make it more beautiful again.
Yeah, thank you, Gay. I'm glad you shared those pictures with us. It's just nice to see that life coming back to those burned out areas. Well, let's get into this podcast. I mentioned Winnipeg-born teenager convicted of murder and his mother turned detective. You can almost hear it as a plot of a TV series or movie, but it's real life, and it happened in Canada. David Milgaard was, in fact, wrongly convicted, and the campaign that his mother, Joyce, conducted to free him and prove his innocence is a gripping tale. Laura Lynch from CBC first reported on Milgaard's appeal to the Supreme Court of Canada in the 1990s. And now, all these years later, she's bringing us an inside look at the case on the new CBC podcast, See You in Court. I spoke with her last week.
Good morning.
So this case starts in 1969. Some listeners, will have heard pieces of this, or maybe they've heard the Tragically Hip song that's inspired by it. But let's go back to that beginning. What happened?
Yeah, and it goes back to a cold January night in 1969 in Saskatoon, and that's when a young nurse named Gail Miller was raped and murdered. There is an investigation. David Milgaard, 16-year-old hippie, is in Prince George, and he hears that the police want to talk to him, so he turns himself in to the police to answer questions. He's later charged, he goes on trial, is convicted, and he's sent to the penitentiary at age 17. From day one, he denies the crime, and his family believes him. Appeals are unsuccessful, so his mother Joyce sets to work to try to prove his innocence. And some years later, they develop their own file of information, applied to the Minister of Justice, Kim Campbell, to reopen the case, arguing that there may be a miscarriage of justice.
This was a criminal case, so why is a politician, albeit a cabinet minister, deciding Milgaard's fate?
It's an important question. I mean, that's the way the system had always been. It's the minister who has the prerogative of the Crown, after all other forms of appeal are exhausted, to consider these last-ditch efforts. But in David Milgaard's case, Kim Campbell's review dragged on for years and years. And then finally, Joyce Milgaard decided to try to push things along by meeting the minister when she found out Campbell was coming to Winnipeg. Now, as Campbell stepped out into a hallway, Joyce Milgaard approached her with a file of information.
I'm sorry, madam, if you want your son to have a fair hearing, don't approach me personally. I'm sorry. It's quite an. Take a look at what she's got. I'm sorry, but I want her son to have a hearing that will withstand scrutiny by the court.
We can't comment on the substantive. Excuse me, please.
Sorry.
Report. Sorry. It's very important. We cannot comment on the substance of the report. Thank you very much.
So hearing that exchange, Laura, it doesn't sound like things are going to go well for the Milgaards.
Yeah, and that clip was seen and heard across the country. A lot of people were quite taken aback by the way Minister Campbell handled it, but She was right in being concerned about appearances. She was only supposed to look at the evidence before her. But then not long after that incident, in February of 1991, the minister issued her decision and she refused to reopen the case. It was David Milgaard's lawyer, David Asper, who told me what it was like to break the news to his client.
And he was in the hole. And I had to go way down deep inside to the bowels of the prison. And I told him, I just had to lay it out exactly what happened. I was so morose and so feeling like a failure. And I was sitting across from a broken human being. And as I described the decision of the minister, he perked up. And his eyes lit up. He came back into the moment. And he exhorted me. He sort of gave me the buck up little soldier speech and said, okay, yet another failure. We trudge on. And when you when you're going through hell, keep going. I came out of that discussion with him saying, all right, we got to turn the jets on here.
And that's just what they did. Joyce Milgaard again went out in search of even more evidence and more witnesses.
I remember all that, that fight that they had in them to refuse to give up. So what did she find when she went in search of this?
I think that the key to all of it for her and for David was finding out that there was another man who may well have committed the murder. Even his wife, this man's wife, suspected he might have done it, and his name was Larry Fisher. He was already in prison for a string of violent sexual assaults. So they refiled the request to the minister. Joyce Milgaard then had another impromptu meeting with then Prime Minister Brian Mulroney, and it all happened before the cameras. He appeared very sympathetic, promising to do what he could. And later in his memoir, he wrote that he more or less told Kim Campbell to reopen the case. She did. She asked the Supreme Court of Canada to do something really rare, hold a hearing with witnesses to determine if this was a wrongful conviction. And they had to build a witness box because the court doesn't usually hear testimony. They had really long lineups outside the court in the dead of winter in Ottawa, early in the morning, waiting to get in. And I should know because I was one of them, reporting for the CBC at the time. Susan Milgaard was there too, David's younger sister, and I spoke to her about that day.
I remember walking up the stairs and just feeling so incredibly small. Like it just towered over me. And I'm thinking, yeah, this is David and Goliath we have here that's going on right now. And it gives you an awestruck kind of feeling to it because it's cold. But at the same time, I have this hope, and I'm very proud that we are at the Supreme Court because we fought really, really hard to get there.
You said it was like David versus Goliath. Who was Goliath?
Justice system.
The hearing was just full of drama, and you can hear all about it in the podcast, and it began to get so much attention across the country. Not long after that, the Supreme Court advised Kim Campbell that David Milgaard would be the victim of a miscarriage of justice if there wasn't a new trial.
So what happened?
Campbell followed the court's advice, but prosecutors in Saskatchewan declined to mount a new case, so David was finally free after 23 years. But he still had to prove his innocence, even though he was freed. That only happened after DNA evidence proved Larry Fisher was indeed the murderer of Gail Miller. But David and Joyce also continually campaigned for another change, to take those applications for miscarriage of justice out of the hands of the politicians and put them into the hands of an independent commission. And they have both since died, but their legacy lives on because just months ago, a new law to make that happen came into effect to create the new commission. It will be created there in Winnipeg, and it's called David and Joyce Milgaard's Law, and you will hear on the podcast what that means to their family.
Really special to have you with us, obviously, with your lived experience in the case, and thank you so much for outlining what's coming, what people can hear in the podcast.
You are welcome.
Laura Lynch, one of the contributors to CBC's new podcast, See You in Court. You can find the episode about David Milgaard and others wherever you get your podcasts. Well, what we're listening to is, of course, the lead up to a tune that's another legacy of David Milgaard's story. This tune from the Tragically Hip from Angor Downey said that Wheat Kings is about David Milgaard, but also about his faith in himself. Here it is on CBC.
Sundown in the Paris of the prairie, we kings of all treasures buried, and all you hear are the rusty breezes pushing around the weather vane Jesus. Zippo lighter, he sees the killer's fate. Maybe it's someone standing in a killer's place. 20 years for nothing, well, that's nothing new besides. No one's interested in something you didn't do. We kings and pretty things, let's just see what the morning brings. There's a dream he dreams where the high school's getting started. It's a museum and we're all locked up in it after dark. The walls are lined all yellow, gray and sinister, hung with pictures of our parents' prime minister. We kings and pretty things, wait and see what tomorrow brings.
The Hip and Wheat Kings, 7:25 a.m. is the time on CBC. Mainly clear in Winnipeg, 1 degree in the city this morning, and pretty clear. We're going to have rain on the back end of this. At the end of the week, it's going to get really wet. But right now for the day, increasing cloud this afternoon and a chance we'll see some showers. It's probably going to be dry, high of 8 degrees. We'll see how that develops. That is Winnipeg. Brandon's clear and -3. For you today, also same thing, chance of showers and a high of 7. Still snow to the north, still power outages for 4,500 customers. We'll hear more about that coming up in the news at 7:30. That's because of the storm yesterday. Well, speaking of the storm, Seattle blew into the Blue Jays and blew them out. It's strike 2 in the American League Championship Series. The Jays are down 2-0. Ooh, this was hard to watch, Scott Regier. It was wow.
Yeah, and in yesterday's case, Marcy, it was a much bigger whiff than in the first instance. After that low-scoring opener of the series, Toronto got blitzed last night. To your point, it was a Seattle Storm, a 10-3 win for the Mariners. There had been high hopes rookie Trey Savage could replicate his success on the mound against the Yankees, but the Mariners, they're proving a far more formidable foe. 3 batters into yesterday's game, the Jays were already down 3-0. Here's Toronto manager John Schneider.
Always going to have optimism about this team. I think just looking at it as a whole, we got to figure out ways to generate some more offense, and give the guys a ton of credit for coming back, down 3, you tie it. They just made more swings than us the last 2 games, kind of what it comes down to. So we got to figure out a way to limit damage, 1, and 2, generate more offense.
Yeah, the damage limitation, Marcy, will be up to Shane Bieber in tomorrow's Game 3. As for creating more offense, that probably starts with Vladdy Guerrero Jr., who after that dominant performance against the Yankees is hitless so far against the Mariners. And if you're wondering about the statistical probability of the Jays still winning this series...
Don't say it!
It's not as bad as I thought it would be, to be
tell me.
honest.
Okay.
It's not good either. Under this format, it's happened 15% of the time. Not unfathomable.
It's happened.
Yeah, it's happened. And this Toronto team, remember, led the majors during the regular season in comeback wins and has been doubted since day one, let's be honest. So if anyone can do it, I really think they can.
Come on, Jays. Let's go to hockey. The Jets got it done. Their depth carried them past New York.
Yeah, yesterday's win over the Islanders, Marcy, saw the likes of Tanner Pearson, Morgan Barron, Nino Niederreiter, and Logan Stanley score multiple points. In the big defender Stanley's case, one of those points was a goal, which means he's now matched his output for his 4 previous seasons, all in which he scored exactly once. Also contributing late night watching baseball. Jonathan Taves, the future Hall of Famer, got an assist, so his first point for his hometown club and his first in the NHL because of injuries in around 2 years.
It's nice to get the monkey off your back. I felt like I had a few chances to score too, so hopefully I find a way to get that first goal here soon too. And still finding my way a little bit, allowing the system and all little details, how we call things out during games, just allowing that to settle in, and it takes time for it to become second nature.
Jonathan Taves, who the hope is will provide some secondary scoring this season to take some of the pressure off of that top line centered by Mark Scheifele, who also had a goal yesterday. Winnipeg's 2-1 to start the campaign. Next game Thursday in Philly against the Flyers.
Let's finish with soccer and the continued build-up for next summer's World Cup.
Yeah, as co-host, of course, Canada's already qualified for the tournament and is testing its mettle ahead of it. And there are few tougher opponents than this evening's Colombia, ranked 13th by FIFA, Marcy, but whose recent play suggests they should be ranked higher than that. Kickoff against Los Cafeteros is 7 o'clock Central Time. And finally, some big news for a very small country. Folk singer Cesaria Evora, Cape Verde's biggest export. Until now, maybe. The tiny African nation's footy side is going to be looking to make a name for itself as well at next summer's World Cup. Cape Verde won its match yesterday and with it qualified for the Sports Showcase event. It has a smaller landmass than Prince Edward Island and only 500,000 people. The only country with fewer inhabitants to make a World Cup, Iceland. Back in 2018, Marcy, when I'm pretty sure I broke out some Bjork to celebrate.
Yes, right? It's about the same vintage, same time.
Yeah.
All right, take care. Talk to you tomorrow.
Sounds good.
In a traffic note, that's Scott Regehr, by the way, with sports. In traffic, Highway 391 to Leaf Rapids is closed right now because of the aftermath of the storm. And also slushy, icy Highway 39 between number 10 and number 6. So just take it easy if you're traveling in any of that storm area of Manitoba. Coming up, maybe you're someone who likes green living, but have you thought about green dying? Winnipeg Cemetery is now offering natural burials. We'll find out more after the news.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it's 1. It is a chilly day, a high of just 8. We start with sunshine, then some clouds move in this afternoon, a slight chance of late day showers. Uncertainty over the next steps for Gaza. Phase 1 of the ceasefire deal saw 20 Israeli hostages freed by Hamas yesterday. Hundreds of Palestinian prisoners released by Israel. But grieving Israeli families are angry the remains of only 4 out of 28 deceased hostages have been handed over. We will hear the latest developments in the Middle East coming up on World Report at 8. Meanwhile, a Manitoba organization run by Jewish and Palestinian members is cautiously optimistic about a U.S. brokered ceasefire deal. Emet Eviatar, with Manitoba Friends of Standing Together, is grateful Israeli hostages and Palestinian prisoners were returned on Monday and that destruction in Gaza will end. Eviatar hopes the deal can appease local divisions and tensions as well.
I would like to think that this is the beginning of a new era where we can actually live in peace together. It would be really nice to be able to sit down together.
Well, as world leaders, including Prime Minister Mark Carney, gathered in Egypt for the signing of the Gaza peace deal, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre was in Winnipeg, where he weighed in on the latest developments.
We have to make sure that Iran doesn't once again provoke a conflict. Of course, the Iranian government was the one that started this by funding and arming Hamas, and we have to make sure that they don't do that again. But as for Canadian tax dollars and resources, we need to focus on Canada. We have to feed our own people.
On social media, Mark Carney says Canada is focusing on the next steps for peace and security in the Middle East. He says part of that includes ensuring life-saving aid to Gaza is delivered urgently. Manitoba hydro crews have restored power to thousands of homes and businesses after storms over the weekend, but 4,500 customers are still in the dark. Upwards of 30 centimeters of heavy snow, high wind, and heavy rain knocked out power to more than 12,000 customers at its peak. Trees were downed, highways were closed for part of yesterday, some of that lingering into today. Manitoba Hydro says crews weren't able to reach and repair all the damage last night. Parts of the north, west, and eastern areas of the province are still impacted by the power outages, and Hydro asks people stay at least 10 meters away from any downed power lines and call 911. A southern Manitoba principal is suing a conservative activist for defamation. Carmen Collegiate Principal Mary Reimer says Raylan Fox has insinuated in social media posts that Reimer groomed children and promoted child pornography. Fox has campaigned to remove books in school libraries she says are sexually explicit, including at the Carmen Collegiate. James Turk at the Toronto Metropolitan University Centre for Free Expression says schools are often reluctant to deal with such challenges.
Typically what happens is if a parent comes in really upset, they get shuffled off to the vice principal if it's a big school or the principal, and the quick solution is just to make the book disappear. That is a terrible way to handle the situation.
In court filings, Fox denies the statements were defamatory. She and the principal declined to comment. Well, they grew up hunting, fishing, and trapping. Now 2 members of Opaskwayak Cree Nation are making sure they can use their skills to help their community. CBC's Felicia Adam traveled to OCN.
Crystal and Omar Constant are often here on the Saskatchewan River.
There you go.
Setting lines to catch sturgeon and hunting moose. The pair are part of the Diamond Willow Traditional Hunting and Gathering Club, making sure people in Opaskwayak Cree Nation have access to traditional and healthy foods at a time when costs have gone up.
It's a teaching that came from my parents and from my uncles, from our side, and that whatever you get, you share.
We are gifted from the land, and the land belongs to all of our people, you know, and we share that back.
Alongside helping community members, they're also teaching the next generation, making sure they know how to be caretakers of the land and respect the animals they share the land with. Felicia Adam, CBC News, Opaskwayak Cree Nation.
Winning on Long Island.
Niederreiter on the breakaway. Niederreiter on the backhand. Ran on a Rumi, centers and Pearson scores.
Tanner Pearson in the second period on TSN as the Jets beat the New York Islanders 5-2, getting an assist and his first point as a Winnipeg Jet, Jonathan Toews. Coach Scott Arniel says Toews is getting better with every game.
He does veteran things. He does elite things, whether it's using his body or his stick or his positioning. And you're seeing him get more and more comfortable with that, getting comfortable with our team and how we play, but also his line mates and different people as well.
And getting his first start in net, Eric Comrie with 34 saves and the win. The Jets head to Philadelphia now to face the Flyers on Thursday. You can find more news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thanks, Heather Wells.
Thank you.
All right, that's our news for this morning. Tuesday after the long weekend. Everybody getting back at it now. And let's find out about the weather. Abby's at the regional forecast.
A chilly start, but sunshine on the way for most of the regions today. We do have a slim chance of showers later in the southern part of the province towards the evening period. Not a lot of rain, but just some areas might just see some speeds of rain here and there. Winnipeg right now, 1 degree, mainly clear out there, warming to 8 degrees. Light winds will come with that. That slim chance of showers, as mentioned, later we may see it, we may not see it. In the Pembina Valley region, -2, rising to 7 degrees. Westman region, around Brandon right now, we're looking at -5. High will climb to around 7 degrees later, with a slim chance of showers also later in the forecast. It's clear in the Parkland region. Dauphin is at -4. The Interlake regions, we're seeing -2 in Gimli at this time. Most of the regions will see sunshine and highs near 8 degrees. Up north, the powerful influence Thompson Churchill, we're looking at 3 degrees across board, warming to highs near 4 degrees in some areas, 5 degrees in some areas, depending on where you are. Churchill sits at -1, rising to 5 degrees. Some clouds by midday. It's going to be sunny across board. Just a few showers in some southern regions. Winnipeg right now, we're 1 and clear outside.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey Funk.
Yeah, right now, westbound Portage at Sturgeon, there's a multi-vehicle collision blocking the curb lane, so keep left to get around that. Emergency vehicles are on scene. As for the highways up north, because of that storm over the weekend, we have one highway closure to keep an eye out for. So that is Highway 391 between Nelson House and Leaf Rapids. Still closed right now due to poor conditions, and also just generally covered and partly covered conditions seeing throughout the north, including around Thompson, Gillum, that area. There's also very poor conditions on Highway 39, according to Manitoba 511, very slushy between Highway 10 and Highway 6. That includes the highway up to Snow Lake as well. So maybe slushy for you this morning. Other than that, though, if you see anything else going on, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
Well, up next on CBC, not everyone likes thinking about it, but it's coming for everyone. We're talking about death. And as of a few weeks ago, Winnipeggers have a new option when it comes to after-death decisions. The City of Winnipeg's Brookside Cemetery is now offering natural burials. Brent Schenbach is the cemetery's administrator for the City of Winnipeg and joins us via Zoom. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for being here. So what is a natural burial?
Yeah, so we're very excited that Brookside Cemetery is the first cemetery in Manitoba to be certified by the Green Burial Society of Canada. So to be certified and for a burial to be considered green or natural, there's 5 key principles that we must follow. So the first principle is what's referred to as ecological restoration. So we've taken about a 1/2 acre piece of conventional lawn that's been mowed for decades, and we've naturalized it with native grasses and wildflowers. And we're going to really just allow the site to naturally evolve over time with as little disturbance as possible. The second principle is no embalming. So any bodies buried within this area must not be embalmed so that bodies can naturally decompose. The third principle is direct earth burial. So bodies can be buried in this area wrapped in a shroud or placed in a casket made of sustainable and fully biodegradable materials. The fourth principle is simple memorialization. So there's no individual headstones or flat markers, with memorialization only available on a communal memorial. So families can purchase a small plaque on a communal memorial that we've placed in the area. And finally, the last principle is efficient use of land. So at Brookside, we're using a remnant parcel of land in an older established area of the cemetery that, as I mentioned, has been a mowed lawn for decades. And we've been able to get this site ready for natural burials with very limited expense or investment in infrastructure. So those are really the 5 key principles associated with natural burials. And as a Green Burial Society of Canada certified site, we're going to be strictly following those principles.
We were looking at images. Our show streamed on YouTube. So as you were speaking, we were seeing the area at Brookside that you're talking about and describing. And we saw, it said, I think, this is Area G, I believe it said, natural burials site. Just so we highlight this, though, how is it different to the ways that currently somebody might be buried in a more traditional way?
Yeah, it's fairly significant in a number of ways. So the first, of course, being the site itself looks very different than other areas. So you're not going to see the conventional upright memorials or flat markers to memorialize a loved one on the site. Of course, memorialization will be focused on a communal memorial in the area. The site itself is not being maintained in the same way as other areas. So the site's not going to be mowed. It's going to just naturally evolve over time with native grasses and wildflowers. So a very different look and feel than other areas of the cemetery.
And obviously people are traditionally embalmed. So this is part of having the body go back naturally to the earth, correct?
Exactly. And folks who are interested in this area, that's one of the key things they're looking for, just a way to return their body back to the earth in as natural a way as possible, and to really just minimize their environmental footprint.
How do you keep track of where people are if there are no gravestones, or is that part of the maybe beauty of this, that there's the communal marking, as you said, and then you have this open area that's been naturalized?
Yeah, so folks visiting will have a hard time figuring out where folks are located, but we have a very good sense of where everyone's located. We have strategically located markers within the area so that we can very accurately figure out where everyone's located, and we have very good documentation within our office, so we know exactly where everyone is and who is where. So. Not obvious to folks with the native grasses dominating the landscape, but for myself and our staff, we have a very good sense of exactly where everyone's located within that section.
And what's the response been so far now that it's happening to the fact, given that there was that demand there?
Yeah, the response has been overwhelmingly positive. We have yet to do a green burial within the area, but we've sold a fair number of lots within the section, pre-sold. We've been receiving dozens of calls from folks who are interested and want to learn more. I'd argue that natural burial it's really a case of what's old is new again. This is how we were doing burials for thousands and thousands of years, but it is a new concept for a lot of folks to wrap their head around. So really happy to sit down with people, answer questions, tour the site, and just see if natural burials is an option for folks.
You've been
burial decisions are really personal, and we're just happy to provide folks with options as they search for the right choice for them and their loved ones.
You've been talking about the environmental impact, and talking about it being a greener option. What are the other? Is that might be one of the main reasons people might choose this? Are there other reasons that maybe we haven't talked about why people might be interested in this?
Yeah, I would say that my experience so far is folks are interested for environmental or personal reasons. In many cases, wanting to reduce their environmental footprint. Some folks might have an impression that green burials are more cost effective, and that could be the case, but and it is a factor for some folks. But I'm finding the most important factor is that green or natural burial best aligns with someone's personal values.
What's the reality of? I just want to interject there. What's the reality of the cost breakdown? Is it less expensive though?
It's fairly comparable with burials in other areas of our cemeteries. I can't speak to other costs outside of the cemetery, like transportation and preparation of bodies. But there are some potential cost savings with no headstones. Often the caskets are fairly basic or no casket at all. So our experience so far is that they're fairly comparable and in cost, and there are some potential cost savings.
Can you explain what the environmental impact of a standard burial would be? I mean, I'm imagining it's just the decomposition, their formaldehyde that would be used. And I hope I have the right chemical for, I'm sorry, I'm saying this so bluntly. I realize we're talking about something sensitive to some folks, but that going into the ground, I guess the chemical would be the issue. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's certainly a part of it. In addition, caskets are often made of materials that are not natural. So we're requiring natural biodegradable caskets within this area. Then there's, of course, the memorialization piece with the, in some cases, fairly large upright memorials or flat markers. That's not permitted within this area as well. And of course, we've naturalized the site itself. So this was an area that we were mowing with lawnmowers pretty much weekly. And now we're just letting the site evolve naturally. So a number of fairly significant environmental benefits.
What are some things that people might want to keep in mind if they're considering this? Because I'm wondering, do you have to plan the burial of your loved one faster, maybe?
Yeah, that's something to keep in mind. And I would definitely recommend that folks reach out to a funeral director or a funeral home and just sort of understand some of those realities associated with a green burial. And of course, stop by our office, and we're happy to speak with folks about natural burials and answer any questions they might have and take them for a tour of the site if that's something they're interested in.
So where is that office? Just so people know, or could they reach out online? What are the ways? How should they inquire?
Yeah, our office is located at Brookside Cemetery at 3001 Notre Dame Avenue. We do have some information online on the City of Winnipeg's website as well. So that's another good option to check out.
Would you do it, Brett? Is it something that I'm just curious if you'd be interested in for yourself or for a loved one, given that, you've been...
That's a really good question. I absolutely would. I think for some folks, it's a really easy decision. They know at a very young age exactly what they want to do. For others, it can be more challenging. I've been in the industry for, about 7 years now. And for me, the decision has not been straightforward. But I think natural burials do most closely align with my personal values. So yeah, hopefully not a decision that I need to make for a while, but when the time comes, I would absolutely choose a natural burial.
Well, really interesting. Thank you very much for telling us about it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Marcy. Appreciate it.
If you want more information about Brookside Cemetery's natural burials, you can simply search Brookside Cemetery on the City of Winnipeg website. And in case you're wondering, right now, they have space for 130 people.
We carry a world of information in our pockets because we want to know. It's news you can trust, delivered when you want and where you want on Canada's News app. Now with CBC Radio 1, local and live. Download the CBC News app for free.
11 minutes now to 8 o'clock. It is Tuesday morning. If you had a long weekend, get back at it. Not going to be too bad today in southern Manitoba. Mainly clear and 1 right now. Our high is 8 degrees. We'll start sunny. It should be quite pretty. And then this afternoon, we do have a slight chance of seeing some more showers. We've got some traffic issues this morning. Chris called the commuter line. He said there's a stalled car now in the curb lane on southbound Archibald just before Provencher. It's backed up all the way to Nairn. So keep left in that area. And thanks for calling, Chris. 788-3093 is the number to use. Well, recently on CBC last week, we heard about a young student, a girl, being bullied at Oak Park High School in Winnipeg. Her mother says her daughter's head was smashed into a bathroom counter. She says she was then pushed to the floor and kicked by a group of girls who are also students. CBC is not naming the mother to protect her daughter's identity, but here's part of what she shared with us.
Yeah, she's scared, of course. She came back after assaulted at Monday, but she was calling me and said, "Mama, some people from group who assaulted me still at school." So she saw one of them, and now until it will be serious decision about group of 5, I prefer to keep her home for safety. These 5 students not supposed to come to this school together, because when they are together, they feel that they are so strong, so it's not gonna be any consequences for them.
That was the mother of an Oak Park High School student who was recently assaulted at school. Now, police say they arrested 2 people in relation to the incident, but as you heard, the mother is frustrated that some of the girls, she understands, are back at school, and so she will keep her daughter at home for now. We wanted to know what violence and bullying looks like at schools today, and also what young people say needs to be done to help. So CBC's Jim Agapito spoke to some students outside a Winnipeg high school about it.
Anastasia Dannon.
Bullying at school, I'm wondering, what are you seeing?
Well, there's mostly just name calling, not really pushing around. So specifically at my school, it's not really common to be more physical, but name calling is a thing.
What do you think we need to do about it?
I say leave people alone. Everybody has their own lives. It doesn't matter. Nobody needs to get in people's faces. There's no reason to do that.
Do you think enough is being done to deal with bullies?
Yes and no. I feel like it matters on the moment. Because if it's a serious bullying situation, then yeah, 100% people will get involved. But if it's because name calling isn't the worst thing in the world, so I'd say the most that'll happen is the person will get talked to and then just let go, basically.
And how do you think schools should deal with bullies?
We should have more assemblies about bullies and how to talk to people about it and be more open about it.
And do you think bullies should be expelled? Why or why not?
again, it matters on the situation. If it's like a really serious situation, then I 100% yeah, because that'll teach them to actually stop and relax. While if it's name calling, the most is like having a strict warning.
My name is Kobe Kanakula.
Do you think bullies should be expelled? Why or why not?
I don't think they should be expelled, but maybe, just talking to by a teacher or like someone, an adult, and just so they can talk about their feelings and why they're bullying like this.
Aaron Babuke Frost.
So how do you think schools should deal with bullies?
Maybe just like, I know they already do like assemblies, but I feel like just definitely more assemblies and more talks about it, because if you do it once, the kids are going to forget about it, and I just feel like it should definitely just be talked about more so that more kids, it's in their brain and that they know it's not right.
Now, do you think bullies should be expelled? Why or why not?
If it continues to happen. So if it's like a first offense, I would say no. Like maybe it was a bad day, you don't know what was going on in their life. But sometimes if it just continues to happen and they don't learn their lesson, then yeah, I think actions should happen.
Hi, what's your full name?
Rebecca Glazer.
Bullying at school, what are you seeing?
Well, at least at my school, I haven't personally seen anything. I think that cyberbullying is probably more likely, or at least it's definitely probably happening, and I just haven't heard of it.
In general, how do you think schools should deal with bullies?
There should be more supports in place for bullying victims, because it is, I was bullied in elementary school, and it's a very serious thing, and it can really affect mental health and self-esteem.
With that being said, you said you experienced it, do you think bullies should be expelled? Why or why not?
I think that no matter what, if it's physical bullying, they do deserve to be expelled, because I think that's really awful. Verbal bullying, depending on how bad it is, I think that expulsion could be a suitable punishment if it's really bad, but if it's more mild bullying, then I think that would be too harsh.
What do you do then to help people who you see are being bullied?
Usually I'll straight up I'll talk to the person that's bothering them, and I'll just tell them to leave, and then usually I don't know, I just like comfort the person. I have a lot of empathy for people, and I like to just talk to them and try to make them feel better and know that they don't deserve what they're going through.
At a Winnipeg high school. Now, it's interesting because, of course, we're using the word bullying, so the students are very thoughtful there about verbal bullying versus physical bullying, which also, you can use the words violence, assault. We know that physical violence is on the rise in Manitoba schools. Manitoba Teacher Society did some recent studies last year looking at the incidents in class. So it also changes the dynamic of a school, right? So what's going on in class? How safe do teachers feel? How safe do students feel? What's that dynamic like? Of course, in the latest case, we have a student staying home because she says that those who were involved, she says, allegedly here with her assault, have been seen at school. So what do you do about it? If you want to call and weigh in, we'd love to hear from you. We want to know if you think schools should expel kids who commit extreme acts of bullying, or how that should be handled. Because, of course, obviously those kids need something moving forward as well. But what do schools need to do to try to get ahead of this? 788-3205 is our listener line, 788-3205.
What kind of person takes on the law? Can they ever really know what they're getting into?
A really tough-looking guy came up to us and said, "Are you part of this gay case?"
My family started getting death threats. I wasn't able to go outside alone anymore.
I'm Phelan Johnson, host of See You in Court, a new podcast about the cases that changed Canada and the ordinary people who made history.
This is David and Goliath we have here.
See You in Court, available now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
Still ahead on the show.
We take them upriver, we show them all the landmarks. This is what your mom and dad or grandparents used to travel. This is what they used to see back then to now and that.
We're going to take you up north to Opaskwayak Cree Nation. As you've been hearing in the news, they're bringing land-based learning to students there. And so we'll have a full report on that coming up on the show after 8 o'clock. Well, this week we'll find ourselves in a community studio. On Thursday morning, we're going to be at the Stellas on Grant. And if you want to join us there, it's very near Caniston. Well, pretty much in that strip mall, Grant and Caniston. We'd love it if you could join us there. Our live show is about Kenaston. So that's why we're there. The mayor will be there. We're also going to talk to people about this plan that is now back on the books to begin construction on widening Kenaston and the new St. James Bridge, both spans by 2027. So that's the latest city report. We've been looking at this for years. The numbers have been all over the place. There's also people involved that could be expropriated, lose their homes because they're going to need the land to do the construction. Not to mention if you're a commuter, maybe you've been stuck in the line, maybe you're cheering about this. So there's all kinds of different perspectives and opinions on widening Kenaston, and we hope you see you Thursday. The mayor will be with us as well, and that is our live show Thursday from Stella's on Grant. If you want to weigh in otherwise, you can call the listener line at 788-3205. Heather Wells joins us now ahead of 8 o'clock with our local news headlines at CBC. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, the executive director of Congregation Shari Zadok in Winnipeg says Monday's Israeli hostage release was a bittersweet moment. Rena Sector Albaz's children knew 2 of the nearly 1,200 Israeli victims of October 7th. She says having the hostages returned brings her hope for peace. Manitoba hydro crews have restored power to thousands of homes and businesses after yesterday's storms, but 4,500 customers are still in the dark after upwards of 30 centimeters of heavy snow and high winds knocking out power. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 8:30.
All right. Thanks, Heather.
Thanks.
Mainly clear in 1 in Winnipeg. Brandon's mainly clear -4. Thompson's -2. As Heather just mentioned, up north, still challenges with travel and power. But if you do see something, you can call the traffic line, 788-3093. In the city of Winnipeg, we have southbound Archipel de Provencher, a stalled car in the curb lane. It's backed up to Narren. So in addition to the story I mentioned after 8, we also are going to dip into what's happening with Canada Post. The Canadian Union of Postal Workers announced late last week an end to the nationwide strike, but they're moving to a rotating strike. What does that mean for the bargaining process and for your home delivery? That's all coming up after 8. World Report, though, is first. Stay with us.
Today on Q.
The author Nicholas Sparks is known for writing big love stories like The Notebook and A Walk to Remember. But his new book is a little different. He joined forces with the horror movie director M. Night Shyamalan to make a supernatural horror murder mystery.
To me, that's one of the great joys of reading is surprise.
Q with Tom Power. This morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland. And on the CBC Listen app or wherever you get your podcasts. From politics to social media to cars and the space race, Elon Musk's influence is everywhere. But what motivates him and what explains him? Journalist Jacob Silverman on the backstory of Elon Musk on The Current with guest host Pia Chattopadhyay in half an hour.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. The latest tariffs in the U.S. President Donald Trump's trade war kick in today. It is a global 10% tariff on all softwood lumber and timber entering the U.S. For Canada, this will come on top of steep levies already in place. The CBC's Janice McGregor is in our parliamentary bureau. Janice, what does this additional 10% mean for Canadian industry?
Marcia, the thing about lumber tariffs is that they are mutually destructive. The U.S. construction industry not only likes the stronger softwood lumber from Canada's colder climate, it needs it. Its own mills can't meet demand. Housing starts are already down in the U.S. thanks in part to high construction prices. Tariffs only make it worse. Nevertheless, 2x4s required to frame American homes are now piling on to the list of exports targeted according to the Trump administration's national security rationale. Since the expiration of the most recent softwood lumber trade truce with Canada a decade ago, Canadian forest companies have been on a roller coaster of seemingly endless cycles of anti-dumping and countervailing duties, legal appeals, any assistance government provides to keep the industry afloat. Well, that just becomes fodder for the next U.S. industry complaint of unfair subsidization. As a result, the Canadian share of the U.S. market has fallen from about a third 2 decades ago to around a quarter of the American market now.
Softwood lumber has long been a sore point between Canada and the U.S. What are the prospects for settling this?
Well, over the weekend, New Brunswick Premier Susan Holt suggested her province was considering perhaps some new retaliation for this latest harm.
We make the best wood for home building, and certainly on the east coast of the U.S., they don't have the supply to build the kind of homes that they need and that their people are asking for. So there is some leverage in simply the fact that they can't do this without our wood.
Setting some kind of an export quota formula might be key to a potential deal, but late last week, the U.S. escalated its trade war with China. With dramatic results on world markets, the U.S. administration is also focusing on talks around more sanctions against Russia. It's unclear whether there's any bandwidth for working out a solution with Canada just now.
Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Janice McGregor in Ottawa. It is Election Day in Newfoundland and Labrador. Liberal leader John Hogan is hoping voters will give his party another majority government. But Progressive Conservative leader Tony Wakeham and NDP leader Jim Dinn say it is time for change. Healthcare, the economy, and an energy deal with Quebec have dominated the campaign. Health experts are warning Canadians about the increased risk of respiratory illnesses. This is the start of the fall and winter virus season. As Kimberly Molina reports, one mother in Ottawa is trying to raise awareness about the potentially severe effects of RSV.
Break the tie? Oh, is it tie game?
Jessica Cohn has a perfectly healthy 10-year-old boy, but when he was less than a month old, it was a scary time. He developed respiratory syncytial virus.
The thing with RSV is that it tends to peak around day 3 to day 5.
Cohn says he got progressively worse and was almost intubated.
They did some more tests and they determined he'd also developed pneumonia and something called adenovirus.
He spent 2 weeks in hospital. RSV can cause up to 16 times more hospitalizations among infants and young children compared to the flu. Dr. Darlene Elchar is a physician at the Ottawa Hospital, and she sits on an RSV task force.
There could be long-term effects as well, and we know that it's associated with asthma and wheezing and chronic lung diseases later on. And so preventing it would mean hopefully reducing that burden later on in life.
Dr. Elchar says there are now antibodies and vaccines.
We actually saw a stunted hospitalization in the pediatrics.
But she says some provinces only offer the antibodies and vaccines to high-risk mothers and infants, and some have no policies at all. The Canadian Immunization Guide shows one of the antibodies reduced the number of young children in hospital with RSV by as much as 83%. Kimberly Molina, CBC News, Ottawa.
Sudan's healthcare system is on the brink of collapse. The country is struggling with simultaneous outbreaks. Cholera, malaria, and dengue fever are spreading. And aid groups say the health crisis is as deadly as Sudan's ongoing civil war. Naba Muhaddin reports.
In Khartoum and other Sudanese cities, hospitals are overwhelmed, with thousands of new cases of malaria and dengue reported in just days. For 2.5 years, conditions have allowed the spread in what have become ideal breeding grounds for disease. Inside Omdurman Hospital, dozens of patients lie under mosquito nets, including this 60-year-old woman, Insaf Muhammad.
I suddenly had a fever and headache a few days after my return home, and it was diagnosed as dengue fever and malaria. The relief is slow despite the medication I get here.
And it's not just dengue and malaria. Cholera, typhoid, and diphtheria are also spreading fast. Muhammad At-Tijani, a government health official, says nearly 80% of health facilities are no longer functioning, many damaged, looted, or occupied by fighters.
The state was occupied by the RSF militia for 2 years. Health facilities were occupied as well. This prevented any efforts to defeat the pandemics as the state was a war zone. And even medical staff were targeted and killed, and ambulances were looted.
As Sudan's war drags into a third year, the collapsing health system, rising disease, and economic hardship mean millions face even greater suffering unless the fighting stops. Naba Muhaddin for CBC News, Port Sudan.
The political turmoil in Madagascar is growing more intense. Large crowds celebrate in the streets of the capital after the president reportedly fled the country. Andry Rajoelina says he fears for his life and claims there is a plot to stage a military coup. His precise whereabouts are not known. But from his self-imposed exile, Rajoelina has ordered the immediate dissolution of the lower house of parliament. Anti-government protests in Madagascar have been going on for weeks. The war in Ukraine may be far from over, but there are signs the years of fighting have taken a toll on Russian forces. For example, this weekend, Dutch authorities said a Russian submarine was being towed in the North Sea. NATO chief Mark Rutte saw an opening to crack a joke.
What a change from the 1984 Tom Clancy novel, The Hunt for Red October. Today, it seems more like the hunt for the nearest mechanic.
There seems to be more personnel challenges in the Russian military, too. Yesterday, Moscow passed a law allowing the Kremlin to deploy reservists outside Russian territory. The U.S. Defense Department is giving an ultimatum to media outlets. Agree to follow new rules or hand in your access pass for the Pentagon. A deadline has been set for 5 p.m. Eastern, but several media outlets are refusing to sign. The CBC's Willie Lowry joins me from Washington. Willie, what are these new rules?
Well, this is all about access to information and to one of the country's most important institutions, the Department of Defense, or as this administration likes to call it, the Department of War. Under the new regulations, journalists who cover the Pentagon will have to sign a document that promises they won't use information that hasn't been authorized. In a social media post, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said access to the Pentagon was a privilege. He added that under the new rules, the press will no longer be allowed to roam the building freely. They'll have to wear a visible badge and will no longer be permitted to solicit criminal acts. In other words, leaked information. It should be noted that Secretary Hegseth was partially responsible for what some believe to be one of the biggest leaks of the Trump administration to date, when a journalist was inadvertently added to a government group chat on a U.S. strike on Houthi rebels in Yemen.
What are we hearing from the media organizations?
They're almost all saying that they will not sign off. That includes the New York Times, Washington Post, CNN, and a host of other outlets, including some conservative leading media. Newsmax, as well as the Washington Times, say they have no plans to agree to the Pentagon's terms. The Pentagon Press Association, which is made up of the journalists who cover the department on a regular basis, has retained legal counsel. In a statement, the association said, quote, limiting the media's ability to report on the U.S. military fails to honor the American families who have entrusted their sons and daughters to serve in it, or the taxpayers responsible for giving the department hundreds of billions of dollars a year.
All right. Thank you, Willie.
My pleasure.
The CBC's Willie Lowry in Washington. And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime at cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We're live in downtown Winnipeg on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and YouTube. Thanks for being with us. Well, maybe you gave thanks this long weekend and maybe something on your table was harvested, hunted, maybe you went fishing from the local area. This half hour on the show, we're going to hear how Opaskwayak Cree Nation is bringing traditional learning and food back to the community. CBC's Sierra Sanders was recently in OCN and she's in studio to bring us that story. Also this half hour, the nationwide postal strike is over, or it's partly over. We're going to hear more about the union's latest move to go to rotating strikes. We'll talk to an expert in labor studies about what that means for the union going forward, but also what it's going to mean for your mail delivery. Stay with us. Local headlines in a moment. And with those, let's turn to Heather Wells now, who's in our news center today. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, Jewish and Palestinian leaders tell CBC they are cautiously optimistic about a U.S. brokered ceasefire deal between Hamas and Israel. Those are local leaders here in Winnipeg. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre was also in Winnipeg, also expressing that same hope as he stopped at Agape Table. So we'll hear more from them. And a southern Manitoba high school principal is suing a conservative activist for defamation. Carmen Collegiate Principal Mary Reimer says Raylyn Fox has insinuated on social media that Reimer groomed children and promoted child pornography. We'll hear more on that story coming up in our next local news at 8:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thanks.
Now we turn to the forecast. What a province we live in. Abby, everyone down south here is saying, you can, even though it's nice and still looks pretty, you can feel that chill, even though we didn't get the white stuff like the north.
Yeah, we're looking at wind chill
It's
around in the values of like -2s to -7s in most regions down south this morning. So if you're waking up to that and you're not used to the cold yet, start bracing for it, because that's the new reality. You start to get moving forward. Though the sun is already making its appearance, it's going to warm things up a bit for most of the regions today. We're waking up to most regions seeing temperatures between -2 up north, and down south we're seeing -4s and -2s in the southern part of the province. I'm talking about from the Pembina Valley region all the way down to the Interlake region. We're spotting -4s and -2s in most of those regions. Winnipeg, we are still at 1 right now. We'll see a mix of sun and clouds through the day, a slim chance of showers in the forecast late, warming up to 8 degrees later. And most of the southern part of the province will see temperatures warm up to between 7 and 8. And up north, we'll be seeing highs of 5 in Churchill and about 4 degrees in Thompson today. But Winnipeg, we are at 1, warming up to 8.
All right. Thanks, Abby. Let's get to Corey Funk, who is here with our look at the commute.
Yeah, so two things to note actually around Archibald and Provencher. So first off, there's been a stalled car all morning in the curb lane. So keep left to get around that. That's southbound Archibald at Provencher. And that's caused some backups there. But also, the city says that Archibald and Provencher, northbound left turn lane is closed for construction. So northbound traffic must travel straight through, so you can't actually turn onto Provencher from Archibald, and that construction is expected to be in place until next week, the end of next week. So heads up with that as well. Up north, one closure to keep an eye out on the highways. That's Highway 391 to Leaf Rapids. So heads up there. But if you do see anything else going on, give me a call on the CBC commuter line 204-788-3093.
Well, a local group in Opaskwayak Cree Nation, as we've been hearing on the news this morning, is bringing traditional foods, but also learning to the community. And it's having an effect on young people, but also on the group's members. CBC Sierra Sanders, as you know, was up with a group of us in the community as part of our Communities in Focus. And she has a story to bring to us this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
So you had the chance to get out on the land when we were up there with some locals who hunt and fish. What'd you get up to?
Marcy, let me take you there really quick first. 1, 2, 3. So that was Crystal Constant out on the Saskatchewan River. She was bundled up in a big jacket with special fishing gloves on, which were perfect for the windy day that we were experiencing out there. And I got to be out there on the Saskatchewan River with Crystal and her husband, Omar. For context, the river we were on is about 1,900 kilometers long and runs all the way from the Rocky Mountains in Alberta and empties into Lake Winnipeg here in Manitoba. And it was also a major transportation route for First Nations for thousands of years. And our CBC team got into their 20-foot fishing boat on a sunny but very windy day, as I mentioned, and we were all bundled up in jackets, toques, and boots, kind of just like Crystal, and we rowed for about 20 minutes down the river before we came to their fishing spot, and that spot was just around a bend of the river where we were shielded enough from the wind, so it's kind of a perfect spot, honestly.
Now, I had a chance to meet this couple when we were eating on the other end of this. They had a variety of fish, so when you were out with them, what were they fishing for?
Yeah, so we were fishing for sturgeon, actually, but Omar and Crystal aren't just fishing for themselves. They had up a group, and they have a group called the Diamond Willow Traditional Hunting and Gathering Club. And this club uses their hunting skills and knowledge to help the community. They work closely with OCN to bring land-based education to students and distribute food to the community, traditional food to the community, including the sturgeon we were fishing for that day, and later prepping it for them.
Well, for us, we like to clean up. We use hot water, scrape everything off. Then we like to make little steaks out of it, and then we vacuum seal it. We wash it like about 3 or 4 times, and we vacuum seal it. And then from there, we would distribute to our elders and that.
And these elders could be living in the care home in the community or just in and around the community. But also, this traditional food is distributed to low-income households and unhoused people who don't have access to those food. And the food is also given to the community for celebrations and funerals. And Omar mentioned this time of year is busy for them as they start to stock up for the winter. And they do go through this supply come spring where they kind of do it all over again.
So lots and lots of sharing. You mentioned a club, so I'm guessing it's not just Omar and Crystal. There's others involved, right?
Yeah, so the club isn't just them. It's a group of about 13 hunters, including a few elders as well. And it's really taken form over the last 5 to 6 years. And they buy all their hunting supplies out of pocket, and this includes gas, bait, and shells for their firearms. But it's not just about the food. It's also about teaching, specifically land-based.
How does the teaching part of it work?
Yeah, so one of the people Omar and Crystal work with is Randy Kershell. He's a teacher at Oscar Laughlin Collegiate, the grade 7 to 12 school in OCN. And I had the chance to speak with him on Omar and Crystal's land, which is just outside the community of OCN. And it's here where they do most of their animal harvesting. I joined them while they were plucking ducks that would go back to the community, actually. And Randy that day was working on debreasting the ducks that they actually shot just a couple of hours before.
So what we're doing right now is some of them are really pin feathery. So what we do is we take the breasts off and then the drumsticks, and then we'll put them in with the ducks, or we'll use them for a stir fry, so that it all gets utilized. So sometimes they're not prime yet, so we utilize as much as we can out of the bird, and then we'll have a good feast out of it.
Yeah, so those are birds they shot actually, but sometimes they'll bring young people along to learn and experience a hunt with them.
Gets the kids out on the land, so they do everything from the hunting and the trapping and the fishing and learning about wildlife and sustainability. So yeah, there's a few that we capture, and that's the main purpose, is to get them out there. And if they have, a good time, then maybe that spurs them on to doing better and bigger things too.
So they've been bringing this learning back to the community for about 20 years now. And while I was out fishing with Omar, he talked about the importance of bringing this learning back to the community. And he compared it to losing the Cree language and their attempts to bring it back, which we've heard a lot about in the news in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, we sure have. And if you're watching, by the way, while Sierra is delivering her report, you're going to see some of this, just them plucking the ducks and out there, and some of the images that we capture while we were up in OCN. What are they hearing? You mentioned the youth. What are they actually hearing about from the kids about these experiences?
So Omar talked about a trip he took with a group of youth one year. And on this trip, they called out a moose from the bush, actually. And they ended up shooting the moose and hauled it into their boat and came home with it. And these kids got to see and experience this entire process. And it sounds like they were a little shy in the moment expressing what this experience meant to them. But Omar says he discovered the impact of this trip much later.
So we didn't hear that story till about 5 years after, and they, hey, thank you for showing us this, doing that, so it has its payoff, but you may not see it there, but it'll show up down the road.
It's classic kids, right? As you described it, maybe shy in the moment, but it's stuck. Something stuck. It's meaningful. How successful is the program overall for the people, I guess, of OCN?
Yeah, so it's not just the youth who are feeling the success of the program. Elders who are in the care home are also reaping the benefits from this group. We also heard from Carla Constant. She's the care home administrator with the Rod McGilvery Memorial Care Home in the community. And she said one of their goals they've set is to incorporate their traditions. And the contribution of traditional food is amazing, and the residents love it. And she said the food seems to take them back home and to their childhood. And as for the land-based learning program, they work with 20 to 30 different students a year. But these are teenagers, so they are challenged by the same things teens deal with everywhere, and it has to do with modern technology.
The biggest challenge we're facing right now is technology. Cell phones. It's really a big distraction, and it's, as you go to a no area with no cell phone, then you got a lot of concentration, but as soon as you hear that cell phone goes off or talking, and that's the biggest challenge we're having, I see right now.
And Omar's not the only one who sees this problem. I also heard from a local named Scapper. That's how he's known there. And he's from the nearby community of Big Eddy, which is about 7 kilometers from the Paw. And he's been hunting with Omar for about 7 years. And he said it's up to the youth to come participate, and that technology stops them from getting out. And if they were to get out, they would appreciate what they get out on the land.
It would be a mood killer to have the phone ring in the middle of all that, right?
Yeah, just takes you out of that moment, I guess.
Yeah, and I guess it would really impact the experience overall as well, right?
Yeah, so it can impact the experience, but the club is having impacts on the community and its members. And while I was at Crystal and Omar's, I met Joe Olson. He's been hunting for 35 years and works on the maintenance crew at the Collegiate. He started hunting with Omar about 6 years ago, but before he was really only hunting for himself. But that changed when he found Omar and Diamond Willow.
When I moved to this club with Omar and them, everything just changed my life around. So just to say, I was in a different area hunting before. It wasn't very much. When I came to board here, everything just changed. Everything was just, everybody helped each other here in this group here. So, well, to tell you the truth, with this group, it's always happiness, friendship, and everything just working together. That's what I like about it.
And he said sharing among them makes things equal. And you may have heard the music in the background there, Marcy. The music you hear really encompasses what Diamond Willow is all about and what I got to experience while I was with this group. It's about having fun, sharing laughs, poking fun at each other, and contributing to the community, whether it's through the land or traditional foods.
I love that. I know you came back from this assignment really excited, and now I can hear why. Thanks for bringing it to the airwaves today.
Thank you, Marcy.
That is Sierra Sanders with that story. She's an associate producer with CBC Manitoba. She was recently up in Opaskwayak Cree Nation to learn more about it. And you can see the images as well because we shot all of this. You can see it at CBC News tonight with a companion piece from Felicia Adam on at 6 o'clock or online at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
I'm Suresh Das. I've spent my career writing about the local favorites that make Canada's food scene truly unique. I bit into a chili. Woo! From vibrant street food to comforting traditional dishes.
The most important ingredients in jollof rice, love.
To innovative, personal twists.
Butter chicken lasagna. Butter chicken lasagna. Yeah. That's what made it all happen.
I believe every bite tells a story. Now, I want to share those stories with you.
New series Locals Welcome with Suresh Das. Watch free on CBC Gem.
8:24 the time right now, 1 degree the temperature, and let's talk about the mail. The Canadian Union of Postal Workers announcing last week they're going to end their nationwide strike, but not over yet. They're going to move to a rotating strike in an effort to continue negotiations but get the mail moving. Adam King is with us this morning, an assistant professor in labor studies at the University of Manitoba, to talk about this. Good morning.
Good morning.
So for people that don't understand how a rotating strike means, what it means and how it works, rather, what will it mean when it comes to, first off, I guess, the customers, people getting their mail?
Yeah, so it means that service will resume, partial service, that is. The union remains in a legal strike position, but instead of having all of its members out across the country, it'll have select members out for different periods. And so partly on the union side, that means that they have a little bit more flexibility when it comes to their strike strategy, and the element of surprise is introduced because different members will be out at different times, but it also conserves their strike fund by not having to pay strike pay to every member who's out on strike across the nation.
Is this effective? What do we know about rotating strikes and their effectiveness from the union standpoint of getting their point across?
Yeah, well, it's uncommon to go from a full-scale labor withdrawal to a rotating strike. It usually goes the other direction because the rotating strike is the first step, and then you ratchet up to a full withdrawal. So it's a bit uncommon to go in the other direction, but I think that's an indication, of course, that the union has been in a prolonged dispute now, and then they're facing both internal pressure from members and also pressure from the public, and so they've had to recalibrate. Rotating strikes can be very effective because they have this element of surprise, and they also conserve a union strike fund. Now, that's a different question in this case, as I mentioned, because they were already on a nationwide strike and have essentially scaled down their labor action.
Now, in a statement last week, the union accused the federal government of emboldening Canada Post, quote, to continue making a mockery of the bargaining process, end quote, by announcing the changes to Canada Post in the middle of their contract dispute. What's your sense of that?
Well, I think it's absolutely the case. I mean, the announcement that came on September 25th preempted a bargaining update from Canada Post that was scheduled to come the day after, and then Canada Post indicated that they would be revising their next bargaining offer, which they did, and introduced additional concessions such as an incentive program to buy people out, essentially, and to start to manage the job losses that will be a result of that government announcement to end home delivery and close rural post office. So another in a series of interventions from the federal government that have really made it very difficult to conclude this process.
How complicated is it when we're hearing stories about Canada Post, and part of what we're hearing is about the human connection mattering. People who might be lonely, might never see anyone except the Postal Service, a worker delivering mail. And while I value the importance of that as a human being, it's hard to make a labor case that would be what a Crown Corporation exists for, to make that human connection when the bottom line is going to be measured by money, dollars and cents, and also by numbers of parcels and packages moving. So how complicated is this for the union right now to move forward? And especially now that they're talking about ending door to door, and we've been hearing about the human connection, but with respect, that's not what that's not what's going to save the Crown Corporation.
No, I mean, it's difficult. I mean, and it's a balance. I mean, it's a public service, and so I think there is definitely a segment of Canadians who appreciate that aspect of the service. And of course, one of the proposals that that the union has long put forward as a solution, of course, is senior check-ins as an additional revenue stream that would build on their infrastructure. And of course, if you're ending home delivery and closing rural post office, that seems all the less likely. But it's a balance, and I think the real issue is that Canada Post has not been able to move into the parcel delivery market in the way that they originally anticipated to offset some of the decline in mail volume. So if they'd been able to do that more successfully, they might be able to continue with home delivery and mail and have your different revenue streams cross-subsidize one another. But now that that's less and less of an option, I think it's putting additional pressure on services that are not money generating, such as mail delivery and that personal touch of home delivery.
What do you think that we're going to see moving forward in the next couple of days now, just back to where we started, just in terms of what's happening, these rotating strikes?
Well, we'll have to see how Canada Post management responds. I mean, there was some speculation that the union might be moving to rotating strikes in a hope that Canada Post would also issue a lockout in retaliation, because sometimes employers will do that because they don't like the element of surprise that a rotating strike introduces, and so management might seek to prevent that by issuing a lockout and keeping a full labor withdrawal going nationwide, and to try and put pressure on the union and perhaps to put pressure on the government to impose arbitration. Now, the union has wanted arbitration for a very long time, and management has opposed it, so we would have to see how that might go. But at this point, I think we're waiting to see how Canada Post management responds to this move.
And what about for the workers individually? All of these changes, where does it leave everyone?
Well, there may have been some pressure internally from members to move to rotating strikes and away from a full national withdrawal, because this means that some members now will resume work and continue to receive a paycheck. So financially, it could benefit those who have been impacted by this ongoing dispute. Of course, they got a small increase in May when they went back, government-imposed wage increase, but it's not a ratified collective agreement, and so many people are still left in limbo and waiting for those raises that would come as a result of an agreement. So it provides a little bit of a financial cushion to some members as they return to work partially, but really what's needed here are ratified collective agreements to set things back on a normal track.
All right, Adam, thank you very much.
Thank you, Marcy.
Adam King is with us, assistant professor of labor studies at the University of Manitoba. As we get ready for news time, Highway 391 close to Leaf Rapids for now. Highway 39 between number 10 and 6 slushy, and there's a lot of partly covered and snow-covered highways across the north. You might want to check before you go out on the maps, and also you can call us on the listener line if you want to pass something along. On the commuter line, 788-3093. Your CBC News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:30, we start with sunshine and cool temperatures. It's just 1 right now in downtown Winnipeg. Increasing afternoon clouds, a slight chance of showers, a high today of 8. A Manitoba organization run by Jewish and Palestinian members is cautiously optimistic about a U.S. brokered ceasefire deal between Hamas and Israel. Emet Eviatar with Manitoba Friends of Standing Together is grateful Israeli hostages and Palestinian prisoners were returned home yesterday and that destruction in Gaza will end. Eviatar hopes the deal can appease local divisions and tensions as well.
I like to think that this is the beginning of a new era where we can actually live in peace together. It would be really nice to be able to sit down together.
According to Israeli tallies, the Hamas-led attack on Israel 2 years ago killed nearly 1,200 people, taking 251 hostages. The Gaza Health Ministry says Israel's war on Gaza claimed more than 67,000 Palestinians. Meanwhile, federal conservative leader Pierre Poilievre weighed in on that Gaza peace deal at a stop in Winnipeg yesterday. As the living hostages returned to Israel and the release of hundreds of Palestinian detainees began, Poilievre says he hopes peace in the region can be sustained.
We want a peaceful resolution to this dispute, and so that all the Abrahamic peoples of the world can enjoy the Holy Land and Israel, and can live in peace next to the Palestinian people.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Mark Carney calls yesterday's diplomatic agreement a new and important chapter. On social media, Carney says his government is focused on peace and security in the Middle East, while also underscoring the need for aid to be delivered. Manitoba hydro crews have restored power to thousands of homes and businesses after storms over the weekend, but 4,500 customers remain in the dark. Upwards of 30 centimeters of heavy snow, high winds, and heavy rain knocked out power at its peak to more than 12,000 customers. Trees were downed, highways closed for part of the day. Manitoba says crews were not able to reach and repair all the damage last night. A Manitoba school principal is seeking an order to bar an activist from implying she promoted child pornography. Carmen Collegiate's Mary Reimer says in a lawsuit, comments from Raylyn Fox have irreparably harmed her reputation. Fox was behind a petition calling on the Prairie Rose School Division to block some books being available to students. She continued to campaign against material which she says is sexually explicit. James Turk at the Toronto Metropolitan University Centre for Free Expression says activists like Fox have increasingly been targeting schools.
Much of their focus is on schools, and on what they call pornographic books in schools that have to be removed.
Fox declined comment. In court filings, she denies her statements were defamatory. Canadian lumber is taking another hit from U.S. President Donald Trump's trade war. A new tariff announced last month is now in effect. It is a global 10% tariff on all softwood lumber and timber entering the U.S. That is in addition to a 35% duty on Canadian softwood already in place. Some finished wood products like cabinets, vanities, and upholstered furniture are also included. They will face a 25% tariff that will increase again on January 1st. A husband and wife duo are making sure their northern Manitoba community has access to traditional foods. Omar and Crystal Constant often distribute food like moose, sturgeon, and berries to elders and to low-income families at Nopasquiat Cree Nation. It's something they've done since 1987.
We cannot feed everyone. But like we said, this is our way of sharing with the local elders in our care home. We are gifted from the land, and the land belongs to all of our people. You know, we share that back with not just ourselves. We don't just take the food for ourselves. We share it with our people.
The pair are part of the Diamond Willow Traditional Hunting and Gathering Club. They say a large part of what they do is educating the next generation in traditional ways of hunting and taking care of the land. You can find more news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
So our news department, big thanks to Heather Wells, as well as to Doni Nicolo and Megan Ketchison this morning. Our live team, Darren Marash, the YouTube producer, Abby Adiemi, who we'll hear from in a moment, and Corey Funk also. And to Jenna Badasso, Carmen Ponto, and Sierra Sanders, who were all on the program today, either producing or on air with items. So big thanks to everyone, and our producers overall, Nellie Gonzalez and Leif Larson. Thanks to everyone who worked this long weekend as well for us. I know that I wasn't here yesterday, so thanks to Chloe Friesen. And I'm going to find out who else was in, because I need to get those names on the list. Right now, though, let's turn to Corey Funk, who is here with a last look at traffic.
Yes, so northbound Archibald at Provencher, there's construction in the left turn lane that takes you on to Provencher. And so that's completely closed actually until the end of next week. So you can't turn left from northbound Archibald onto Provencher till the end of next week. But that stall on southbound Archibald at Provencher is now clear. Abby?
Yeah, we're looking at plenty of sunshine for most of the regions from the north all the way down south. We're seeing -2s and -4 across board in the southern regions now. We'll see temperatures between 7 and 8 as a high for this part of the province. And up north, we're looking at highs for 5 degrees in Churchill and 4 degrees for the rest of the northern part of the province.
Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Well, I stepped out and learned that May McKillop and Marshall Hodgins are also going to be thanked here because they were in yesterday for our regular crew. So thanks, everyone, for working that Thanksgiving Monday for us. And thank you for listening this morning. If you want to weigh in on the call-in, it's timely. Marjorie Dowhouse on Radio Noon between 12:30 and 1 is going to be talking about what to do with the Thanksgiving leftovers. All your ideas are welcome. Have a conversation on air here with us at CBC between 12:30 and 1. If you want to leave a recipe now, 788-3797. Take care, be well, Manitoba. I'm Marcy Marcusa, and this has been Information Radio. We'll talk to you again tomorrow morning on 89.3 FM.